Good morning, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started here on our State Tribal Relations Committee meeting on Monday, June 15th, 2026. Roll call, please.
It's a roll call for the Select Committee on Tribal Relations for Monday, June 15th. Senator Barlow.
He's either online or he's going to be online shortly. So let's excuse him for now. And
Senator Salazar. Here. Representative Guggenmoos.
Here.
Representative Ottman.
Here.
Co-Chairman Case.
present. Thank you very much.
Chairman Posey.
Present.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
We're going to go ahead and get started here, and want to make sure everybody that's in attendance today to please sign in. And I'd like to acknowledge some members of the audience here, Chairman Waylon Large from the Eastern Shoshone Business Council, both tribal liaisons, Anita Roman from the Northern Arapaho Tribe and James Sorrells from the Eastern Shoshone Tribe, and various people. And welcome, you could join us here also this morning. Former Representative Scotty Ratliff. So we're going to go ahead and call up the Eastern Shoshone Business Council. Chairman Large.
I think one of our staff members has something to say. Savannah.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I was just letting you know that your mic was not on. You're looking for the green light on it when it's on or not.
Yeah, it'll just go off.
Yes, sir.
So it's got to hold it down?
No, shouldn't have to, but are these the new mics, Noah? We shouldn't have any problems, right? Okay. Should be okay with the green light. You have to look at that little tiny light there, but everybody sees a green light underneath you, see?
Chairman Large, if you'd like to come up, please. Zombechu.
Sambecho yandas sanisangaan dumbuye to Garo Poinda. It's it's good to see you and sit with you and talk. Good morning. Well, for the tribe, I know it's just me. I mean, my other council members are on their way. So we have issues going on. We've been doing a lot of, we've been on travel, bless you, with working with getting our students tuition with the university. We're working on that issue. We also been working, that's all alongside with the Northern Arapaho Business Council. And we have a delegation that has been going to each meeting. We have visited here, and then we have been couple of meetings. We have been down to Laramie and also dealing with CSU there in Fort Collins. So in the head count that we know, the last time that we had our meeting, I know I'm out of context here, but that's where we've been mainly been for the last week. We have a total, I think it was quoted about maybe 80 some students at the university. So that's Shoshone and in Arapaho. We have a few students, I think one student that's going to CSU, but we're working with a gal, her name's Patrice with CSU, and we still got another meeting slated down the road, but that's one thing we've been working on. I know the tribe this week is being busybodies, getting ready for our annual celebration, our powwow. It starts on Thursday at Fort Washakie, the 66th annual Eastern Shoshone Indian Days. So that starts Thursday, warm-up night. They'll do their royalty. We'll see who our new queen is and who our first and second attendant of the tribe will to reign that year and be present at all the tribal activities, feasts, and whatnot. And I believe also we're busy. They're going to be having our favorite Indian sport, Indian relay. they'll be having that on Saturday and Sunday at Wawaski, so they'll have that. Gosh, we've been really busy other than with our programs. I know I'm going blank here. Working with I know some of the, I know on the agenda, some of the, like the solid waste, that'll be addressed, I believe tomorrow. If I looked at that, I left the agenda on my seat. I know that I know we can discuss that at later time. Other than that, we've been very busy with our Wind River Intertribal Council. We're trying to hurry up and knock out it's been going, it's just, we don't have enough hours of the day, the time, because we're just back to back. Regarding our Shoshone and Arapaho Law and Order Code. We're like in chapter 10, but it's a pretty thick Bible. I mean, it's thick, but we're trying to get that done. We're working with an attorney. And so we're trying to get that pretty much squared away. We kind of had a target of September, but I don't know if September's gonna work. So, but if we can hustle, just with meetings, we have joint meetings every Wednesdays and Thursdays, and each tribe respectively, we have our own meetings Monday and Tuesday and Friday. So, but other than that, and I know we're closed on Friday due to the federal holiday, so it's going to be a short week for the tribe. Let's see, getting all our summer youth squared away. They already started their jobs. So under our tribal youth programs, let's see, we just recently had our tribal, we have some other activities, our recent Memorial Day activity, and where we have a AKA Washki's lunch, but we give a sack lunch when it's Representative Posey's a part of our Richard Poe Post 81 when they do the prayer and all that. They go to different sites in the agency, and then we end out at Sacagawea Cemetery, and then we give that all to so that was one activity. Let's see. Oh, then we got a lot of activities going on this weekend because we got parade. They're gonna have a feast, and I like to hang game. I don't know if you understand hang game, but I like to play hang game. So they'll be having a small hang game tournament on Saturday and Sunday. That's the sticks and you guess the deer bones, but it's an old style. We say Avesh Niowe. That's giveaway. It's a guessing game. It's fun. I like playing it. Let's see what else to we recently, let's see, what did I know we have our active newsletter, so that's been with Alejandra. Yeah, and then we do have we have Harmony Spoonhunter, our Shoshone Higher Education Director. She's developed, even though we have the Facebook and Twitter, she's developing our new website. So that is forthcoming. So I believe she'll do an excellent job on that. It's going to create a better access for tribal members that are more cell phone prone, more computer prone. They can download everything from your enrollment application to be enrolled, higher ed application, to our utilities. They can pay their bill, your water bill, making it a lot more easy, like even getting propane, go online, kiosk code. So we're in the process of that. So hopefully that should be, I'm forecasting maybe late fall. So that'll be up and running for the tribe, which is good. We're the 21st century. Get the people the younger ones are very prone at cell phone, which too. My mom's 85. She don't have a cell phone. So she gives it to the nephew and then he works it for her. But other than it, let's see, I'm trying to think. The tribe we're going to be having, we're on a joint venture. I know both tribes, we do have a joint venture. We have selected a site for a possibly new clinic forthcoming down the road, and we have selected the site where everything's there. That will go right at the old rodeo ground. I know there's pros and cons to people, but that is about the accessible place that we can target. So we're working that and then the tribe can figure out where that in the future, we'll have a new rodeo ground. So, but we're gonna have a commemorative rodeo that's gonna be slated in September, hosted by the tribe. That's just, will be held at the old rodeo ground. And then a new site will be selected at a later date for the new rodeo ground. But that's where we have, for the joint venture, that's where we kind of have our eyes geared to. I know in our wood program, they've been, we had a very mild winter. Winter skipped us this year, so we didn't have too much problem. But only thing that we did have a problem was when we had that 4 day of very strong wind. It damaged a lot of tribal members' roofs, sidings, and then I even went and looked at our new power arbor. It kind of shifted it because it blew pretty hard. So I don't know. So it should be good during Indian days. So, but it kind of might need to be because it blew here for a good 4 days. So let me see what else. Other than that, the tribe's moving along. It's our election year. We will have our primary in September. October 27th is the general, and whoever the three new ones that will sit together with Vice Chairman Ware, Councilman Glick, and Councilwoman Snyder. Myself, Councilwoman St. Clair, and Councilman Thayer will be. They're done, and I gave my 4 years to the tribe, so I had my own paparazzi and whatnot. But I mean, I could say it was a good ride and a crazy ride, but I believe that I gave my 4 years of service to my people, but I'm encouraging tribal members, younger ones, learn about your government. But I always remember to don't forget your Indian tongue too. Don't be scared, talk Indian. I always promote that. So hopefully I'll find a job, maybe teaching the kids Indian. I enjoy that, so I'll find something after, when my term is up. So, and it's on Halloween, but I could wear a mask. I'm a councilman. Hey. But other than that, that's all I have to say though. But it's good to be here this morning with y'all. Thank you.
Hey, good morning. Stanford William, Oakwood.
Mr. Chairman, pardon me, just kind of a little point of order. These microphones are pretty sensitive, so we try to have one on at a time. It's just a little better for the system, so we have to watch that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, to follow up on Chairman Large's comments there's healthcare. Obviously, you guys contracted through 638 the services for Indian Health Service, and you talked about a new facility in the rodeo grounds, right? So that's down the road here.
Right. Yes, Representative Posey. I forgot to mention, I mean, I've got so many irons in the fire. We don't have a tribal administrator, so we're working live. We had the middleman. We get kind of so swamped, but I forgot we just recently on Friday, we had a dedication at our Warm Valley Healthcare Center, ribbon cutting. We have 12 new rooms on the south side of the 1884 clinic that was built. That was when it was a U.S. Commissary, and then it turned into a hospital. Then it's been the Fort Washakie Clinic for a long time. And then when we 638 the clinic back in July 1, it was supposed to have been on April Fool's, April 4th, but that was Honorable Chairman St. Clair's joke. But we moved it back to July 1 when we took over, we 638. So we're moving right along. But we had the funds, so we built 12 new rooms. And that was Friday evening. We had a small reception and Representative Posey was there and gave some remarks. I gave some remarks. Vice Chairman Ware was present, and then our CEO, Dr. McAlpin was there and his staff, and we had little finger food, dessert, and then we dedicated that, and we had my Bobby, means my older brother, Arlen Shoyo, he prayed and blessed that. So that was Friday evening. So that was just recently. We are looking also, I know, into part of the 630 is the 105 leasing, because we're having some issues right now with our Morningstar Manor. It services about 40 clients. It used to be like, was it, Vice Chairman, a little bit more than that, maybe about 80 something. It was a little bit higher, but then the Northern Ramble has their dialysis center, so that number kind of split in half. But we're having issues with the roof, so we're gonna go through and look through the 105 leasing. We have a gal. She's out of Alaska. She's pretty familiar with it. We met her down in and Councilwoman Snyder down in, I met her before, but she had another breakout session when we went to the Self-Governance Conference in Phoenix back in August. And then also with our Morningstar Manor, we're having issues with the roof. Those buildings are quite old. You know, they've been built, I don't know, Representative Posey, maybe when under, I don't know whose leadership then, when Morningstar Manor was built, and then it's before our time. We're young guys, and then with the dialysis center. So, but right now, that's what issue we're facing. But we're looking towards the 105 leasing to kind of repair it. So that's what we're really looking into, because they serve not only at our dialysis, they're serving both tribes and non-Indian. So there, and then a lot of the equipment is starting to get outdated. So we have been advised of that. Our director, Christine Williams, she's our director there. So she works with what she has to do, but she's making it happen. And then also with Miss Hendrickson at our the director for the Morningstar Manor. We have a lot of our elders there, and there are some non-Indians, and both tribal members are in that facility. But that's some of the issues that we have right now. I don't know if Vice Chairman Ware wants to touch on some stuff. I could rack my brain, and then I'll be sitting back there like, oops, I forgot to mention this. No.
Mr. Chairman. I just want
In the
to,
case,
I want to thank you to the invitation to the sort of the new facilities at Warm Valley. I was coming back from Gillette, and the people just talked longer in Gillette than they were supposed to. I was hoping to get back and attend that. I was very sorry to miss it.
It turned out well.
I hear that.
Good morning. I don't have too much to add. I know in the joint realm for both of our tribes, I know we're just working on compliance with all our federal reports. But other than that, I don't know what else to touch on. Casino, mostly just casino. A lot of compliance everywhere around. We're trying to get back into, but it's coming along. It's a little battle here and there. We've had a lot of turnover in our joint finance, but I think we'll get there.
is there any questions or comments for Chairman or Co-Chairman of the Shoshone Tribe?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman?
I was hoping to learn, I know from talking to the people in my church that the per capita payments have been considerably low. Is there any hope for them going up a little bit?
Chairman, honestly, I don't think they will. I think for some reason we've had a downturn in production and everything's been getting closed in. You know, we had a whole gas field that would contribute a good chunk of change every month to our people for our per caps, and then they closed the whole field down. And I believe it was a gas field, but
Yeah.
So now, as of maybe a month or two ago, there is no more gas being produced on the reservation. and oil's going down. I don't know what it is closing all these wells, but we need to keep them open. Especially if they're producing, we have a joint program called Wind River Energy Commission. And I believe if the tribes could analyze these wells, I think it would be more productive for everyone that if we could produce these wells for ourselves. Because I think our overhead's probably a lot less than these big companies with the extremes overhead. But thank you.
Thank you for the information.
Representative Altman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just to follow up on that, I thought, Vice Chairman Ware, I thought about a year and a half ago, the tribes did take over the oil fields and stuff like that. And
Chairman, that yes and no. So we have, I forget how many oil fields we have. 7 or 8. I know we took over 2, and then we have 2 independent little fields that have like 1 or 2 wells on them. So right now the Wind River Energy Commission only has about 4 fields together, but we still have, let's say, another 4 out there that produce kind of a lot. Used to produce a lot. We used to have that whole Muddy Ridge that just nothing's coming out of it no more. So we're in the process of taking things over, but it's just a slow process because all of it's paperwork, and depending on where you're at, even if you're on the reservation or if it's BLM, BOR land, and it's a whole another process to try to take something over because I think the regulations are just different. Mhm.
Yeah, and Mr. Chairman, Representative Ottman, there is definitely potential for increased production. These are older fields, and all sorts of things happen to old wells. Sometimes they get wax in them, and sometimes there are other things that can go, but they can be restored, and there are even advanced techniques for improving production. But it takes a lot of investment. Prices are pretty good right now, relatively, so it's even worse right now if you can't produce when these prices are high. So good luck.
Yes, Chairman, I'd like to add there too that we are looking to a EOR project for our Circle Ridge field, but it's going to take a big push to get that pipeline over there for the gas that they're going to use for the EOR. And the EOR is enhanced oil recovery, but it's supposed to pull all the oil and gas pretty much from the rock and then shoot it up. But it's like tenfold, I guess, return.
Mr. Chairman, just to follow up on that, would that be a natural gas flood or would it be CO2 flood? Some fields use steam in the advanced time.
I think,
Some use water to begin with.
yeah, I think we're water right now, but I think we were looking at a CO2.
Uh-huh.
I'm pretty sure it's a CO2. I
Yeah.
know we've touched on every one to see what would benefit us, but I think there's a pipeline over here with the full of it, and then we just needed to get it over there so we can start using it.
There's a shortage of CO2 for enhanced oil recovery all across the state.
Oh, wow.
We could definitely use more. And there are fields that would benefit from the strategy, but
Mhm.
there's actually a shortage.
I hear you. Thank you. Oh, it's not mine.
Any other questions or comments? Well, I imagine you gentlemen will be at this throughout most of the day, so we'll probably free them on other issues here. At this time, is there anybody here from the governor's office, obviously, to get an update? Thank you, Chairman Large, Co-Chairman Ware.
Good to see you both.
Who? Niaka, Zambeichu.
Zambechu, good morning. Chairman, Co-Chairman, Honorable Committee, Senator Barlow online. Good morning. I'm James Charles. I'm the tribal liaison to the Eastern Shoshone Tribe at Governor Gordon's office. Thank you for the opportunity to provide a few brief updates today. Governor Gordon continues to be committed to maintaining a strong relationship with each sovereign tribe. Regular meetings are held quarterly, as well as one in-person quarterly meeting where he comes to their chambers and meets personally with them, as well as other times that the governor and the business councils are present at different functions. So he does get to know them personally and kind of on a first name basis at times. And if things happen, of course, he got the chairman's number on speed dial. So if problems arise where they need to connect. So with that, just a few updates. Of course, next week we got the 2026 Grant Funding Summit that'll be held at the Camplex in Gillette. The tribe will be sending numerous different departments, finance, health, housing, some of their departments that look for funding and state funding as well as federal funding. Last year, the funding summit was held here. And with that, Councilman Clint Glick was one of the panelists. So that's probably one of the first times a council member has been on the panel. So that was he was well accepted and had some ideas that the communities got to hear. So looking forward to that again. Another one, part of the housing program is a branch off that called Energize Wind River. Shoshone Tribe had gotten it's called a tribal electrification program. They had gotten a grant through, I think that comes through the Department of Interior, which is designed to help homes that are, they're eligible, meet the requirements to get solar panels, right? And these solar panels can take them off the grid if they are hooked up to electricity, or if and there's some homes that do not have electricity where this can help them, at least, get electricity and come into the modern times. So that's one that's just started. I went out to one of their sites last week and got to take a tour of how it was put up and what it entails to get these homes to be able to accept this large solar panel that is really quite unique because it will move with the sun. If it has snow on it, it will vibrate and shake it off. They have batteries that backup batteries that the solar panel will recharge, and as a last resort to it, I think also I know a generator is also installed, a small generator, and for out there, most of the power our heat is through propane if you don't have wood, so the generator's fired by propane, if all else fails, and it will charge the batteries. However, the day I was happened to be out there, it was a very overcast, last week. And even with that said, at 9 o'clock in the morning, the battery's at 30%. And by 2 o'clock in the afternoon, they were at 80. So quite a good program. Anyway, next I have some little bit updates on solid waste. The governor continues to work collaboratively to address this issue. It's even as you speak, it's still growing. So, the illegal dump sites and that sort of stuff is still growing. Recently, the EPA and the Shoshone Tribe they've been, finally coming together and getting some they put in for submitted for a gap grant. This is fairly new for the tribes. Their solid waste program now has an office and a phone number instead of Director Verlin working out of his truck. So they have an office, they have a admin building, they got a computer that their admin assistant can help with some of that stuff. Like I said, with that EPA GAP grant, their technical assistance is working with Marla, who's their admin assistant, and getting this grant submitted. So it is moving forward in some of that stuff, and we're happy to hear that as well. Another part of it is happens to deal with the Brownsfield grants. At a EPA again, Region 8. They've been meeting with the Housing Authority and of course Business Council. Again, Councilman Glick played a very good role in that, where they had submitted sites that were homes that were pretty abandoned. Abandoned. A lot of those. I don't know if you Representative Posey, Chairman Posey, you might remember when they had HIP housing. So a lot of these are smaller homes. I think they're like 2 bedrooms, that kind of like the elderly had back then, built back in the 70s. And, probably a lot of those probably got lead-based paints. So this Brownsfield grant is designed to, once they do their assessment, they'll assess these sites for basically, lead-based paints, asbestos, methamphetamine, so it can do some revitalization on some of that. So that is another one. Once this assessment is completed, speaking with Region 8, there's been Shoshone Tribe has submitted 15 sites. Many more than that are out there, but we're just to get started with this amount, and that way we can go from there. And then once that is assessed, whatever the problem is, they can put in for the Brownsfield grants and move forward in that direction.
Representative Botman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. James, just a question on that. Were any of these sites properties that might be in Riverton?
Thank you for the question, Representative Ottman. I do not believe so, that I know of, unless they're owned by the joint tribes. And they've been I can only speak for the Shoshone Tribe. I know most of theirs are up at the fort, around the Fort Washakie area. I know the Arapaho Tribe, I think they're doing some as well, but I do not know where theirs are located.
Mr. Chairman? Yeah, follow up. How, because this city of Riverton, I know for the last couple of years has been looking at some of the abandoned homes in town and trying to find the owners, and they said, well, it's tribal. So how can your committee work possibly with the city of Riverton or get in contact with each other? Could that be something that you guys could look into?
Thank you, Representative Mottman. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Moving.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry.
Sorry, go
May I
ahead.
follow up on
Co-chairman?
may I follow up on just the nature of the brownfield sites we're talking about? Sometimes when you say brownfield, in terms of the state, we've talked about the refinery in Casper. That's kind of the biggest, most famous brownfield site in the state. But these are different sites. These are like solid waste sites and things like that. These are much less catastrophic on the scale. I just don't want people to be concerned. Mostly, I would assume they're solid waste locations. But I don't know.
Co-chairman Case, members of the committee, this Brownsfield grant is for land revitalization. So it is basically looking for contamination. So, but for now, I think they're focusing on homes that were abandoned. Okay, and then with the GAP grant for the solid waste, then we'll probably move in different directions depending on how some of this assessment goes. But it's coming probably in the next I'd say 6 to 8 weeks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Sorrells, I got a question in terms of the illegal dumping. And Chairman Large mentioned earlier about updating some of the law and order code, which is a very cumbersome process, at least for the Shoshone tribe. But I was wondering, when people get caught for illegal dumping, is there a weakness in the Shoshone and Arapaho Law and Order Code that leads to fines or whatever? And I'll leave that open for both of you. Thank you.
Sorry, I always get nervous. Excuse me. Anita Roman, liaison to the Northern Arapaho Tribe out of Governor Mark Gordon's office. Good to see you. Chairman Posey, Chairman Case, and representatives and senators. So yeah, actually the SALOC is being updated and I'm thinking they're going to report on that tomorrow. So I don't want to touch on what they're going to be covering with regards to solid waste, but there is no, the thing is that when they catch non-tribal members who are illegally dumping on the reservation, they can't enforce on them. And so there is some law and order that we've been kind of looking forward for, and we found it there that maybe they can send those judgments to the district, I think district court, county court. I don't want to get that too tied up, but yeah, and maybe they can get them that. But the issue here is that, they'll look at trash and they'll have, they'll find the mail in there showing who it belongs to. And then, oftentimes they'll get the pushback, excuse me, of, well, we don't know if they dumped it there. It might be their trash, but it might not have been them who dumped it there illegally on, our beautiful mountains on the side of the road, et cetera. So it's definitely something I think that they would like to have a discussion with you. And when I say they, I'm talking about Arapaho first for the Northern Arapaho Tribe, I'm thinking, and just kind of helping this committee explore what that looks like so that we can enforce on non-tribal members. And then in the SALOC, they do have, they're putting in more updated language, I think a little bit harsher penalties for tribal members that are illegally dumping. And so that's really exciting that they're working on that, and they've been very intensely working on it. And I think they're doing a joint committee between both tribes to make sure that SALOC law and order code looks really good, or the Shoshone Arapaho. When we refer to SALOC, that's the Shoshone Arapaho law and order code, just making sure that that looks good and is all tied up. So what they have right now is pretty minimal fines, but we'll see how it goes moving forward.
Now, my understanding, Mr. Charles, is changes to the law and order code still go through general counsel on the Shoshone side, which makes it, like I mentioned earlier, a very cumbersome process.
Yes, Chairman Posey, that is correct. The Shoshone and Arapaho Law and Order Code, SALOC, would have to be presented at, as far as I know, would have to be presented at the East Shoshone Tribes General Council meeting for approval, for final approval. Which can be cumbersome, especially when individuals start looking at it and do not agree with certain things on there. So I guess that's about as far as I'd elaborate on that. Thank you. Just have a couple more things. Of course, Governor Gordon, proclaims May 5th, 2026 as Missing and Murdered Indigenous Persons Day of Awareness. Another thing I wanted to add too is that Sunbucks, Governor Gordon did the Sunbucks. It's the website is not fully functional as far as doing registration. However, though, the checks will start, not really so much the checks, but the cards will be coming out in early July. That is $40 per child. So for the 3 months, $120 per child, or that is eligible. And like I said, those will be coming out in early July. However, though, once that, if you did not get a chance to register, if they did not get a chance to register, they have till August 31st to register. And they will, even if they do it then, they will still get the full benefit for the 3 months. So that'll certainly help the young ones. No, you got a full agenda today. We look forward to any opportunity we can work with you during the interim. And with that, I stand for any questions.
That it, Mr. Searles? You're good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Ms. Roman.
as mentioned, I'm Anita Roman, liaison to the Northern Arapaho Tribe. I really wanted to address really quick, the Northern Arapaho Business Council is tied up in other business meetings this fine morning. And so I just thought I'd let you know, they will be here later on. They've worked very closely, as you might know, Chairman, with regards to the agenda and making sure that they can be as supportive as they can. Typically, Select Tribal is held in May. And, between that January and May, it's really close. And the reason being is that we're actually in ceremonial season as well for the Northern Arapaho tribe. And so it's really hard to kind of get everyone to the table in June right before our ceremony. So with that said, I just wanted to say that they should be here later. And then, I was texting Chairman just to confirm. On a side note, though, I will kind of follow up on MMIP. Since we met in January to now, we had that wonderful event in February. And I think Representative Posey, you were able to show up for a brief moment, but and Representative Larson was there to support the program. And it just turned out really phenomenal with Governor Gordon coming out to CWC and talking to all of the tribal schools, and then also going over to Lander to talk to tribal schools regarding teen dating violence and its correlation to MMIP. And we had a speaker come out of Idaho, Ty Simpson, and she did such a phenomenal job just talking to the youth. So I think we're looking forward to what other MMIP programs that we can or events that we can do. I won't talk too much about that, but it's just been really phenomenal feedback. Just last week, Governor Gordon also went over to UW and met with the Native American Summer Institute, the NASI. And so that's something that Renette Pendor and the Native American program at UW puts on. And it was just a great opportunity for both councils to sit with Governor Gordon and just talk to the youth about what civic engagement looks like for them as dual citizens, right? So the Northern Arapaho tribe and the Eastern Shoshone were able to kind of address what their elections look like and how you vote based on a resolution tribe versus what it's like to be civically engaged as a state citizen, right? So when you are a state citizen, what does that look like to go and register to vote and who you vote for and why you should pay attention. So it was a really amazing event, and it was a testament to the relationship that Governor Gordon has had and worked on with the both councils. So I will touch on that really quick. And then honestly, the agenda is just really full, and I look forward to seeing all of the updates that everyone has to provide. I don't want to talk too much about everything and take their stuff away, and I stand for any questions if you have any. But again, my job is to kind of make sure everybody is as connected as possible, and I think you all know that because I'll email you constantly. So have a good day. Let me know.
Any questions or comments for our governor's liaisons? Well, I appreciate all you and Mr. Sorrells, what you guys do, and keep those lines of communication open between the governor's office and this committee and in our community. So I appreciate that. I'm sure I'll see you guys further down the road here. So I guess that's we're a little bit above schedule, little bit ahead of a schedule. We still gotta, I overlooked that, but we gotta approve the minutes, right? Yes, we'll go back and I apologize for that committee that we need the approval of minutes from our January 27th and 28th meeting. So, okay, we have a motion to approve. Is there a second? Second by Representative Altman. Any questions or comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same. Okay, motion passes. The minutes for that meeting are approved. So we're going to go ahead and jump into our next agenda item, which is tribal youth issues. Obviously, we have the Department of Education that will go first, and then we'll go with districts, the local districts to discuss the same issue. Please introduce yourself on the record, please.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. On behalf of Superintendent Degenfelder and the Wyoming Department of Education, thank you for having us today. My name is Nish Goikolea. I'm the Chief Policy Officer, and I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, Mr. Rob Black, who is our tribal liaison. We have submitted to you all an extensive report in conjunction with the districts. And rather than go through it line by line with you, I just want to give you the highlights and then give an opportunity for any questions you have. The department works closely with the districts to provide tools, resources, and a variety of supports. We have a number of special things that we tend to focus on. And this last year, we had a major emphasis focusing on literacy. And we also attained a federal literacy grant that all of the districts are part of going forward, which is in beautiful timing with the literacy legislation that goes into effect July 1. So we're very much looking forward to those efforts. We know that when our kids can read, they can do a lot better in all subjects. And so we anticipate to see a lot of growth there, but the districts are going to receive the utmost support and help and tools and resources for that effort as well. So we know that we've seen a lot of growth over the last couple years. We anticipate to see this fall some growth through our system of support efforts and our accountability measures. But furthermore, with these literacy efforts, we hope to see a lot more coming as well across the board in all areas. Through our statewide system of support, we work closely with the districts to create school improvement plans. These plans go through line by line kind of the areas that we see are in need, that need growth, that need support. And then we work together with the districts to talk about what that should look like, what are the root causes, how can we move things, and then we analyze those every year. This last year, we made an extra concerted effort to have monthly meetings, meet 3 times in person. We walked the schools, we talked about all kinds of things, and we're getting ready to complete an end of the year report that will be available to you all, as well as the districts and anybody else, to say where we've seen improvements. That report will be finalized this fall once we get the final accountability and achievement measures and scores. Those will be a little delayed though this year because of the standards have been cut by the State Board of Education to reduction. And we have a new assessment vendor coming on board this fall for YTOP. So this year and next year, our results are going to be a little delayed, which is kind of sad because we're all very much looking forward to that because we think we've seen a lot of improvements and we're optimistic about what's coming. We do know that, change takes typically 3 to 5 years, but we're seeing growth, and that's really positive for the outlook going forward. And with that, I'll stop and let my colleague go ahead and chime in on his items.
Thank you, Chief. Rob Black. I'm the Native American Liaison and the Social Studies Consultant for the Wyoming Department of Education. Always an honor and a pleasure to be here on this beautiful day in the Warm Valley and to be your guest. So thank you. Thank you so much for your time. I wanted to just touch on 3 areas. Again, as Chief Goikolea mentioned, you have an extensive memo, but I wanted to touch on 3 issues related to Indian Ed for All. One is the Native American Education Cabinet, which Superintendent Degenfelder formed in the fall of 2024 to advise her on education issues affecting the tribes. And many people in this room, or several people in this room, are a member of the cabinet, including Representative Posey. One of the highlights of the cabinet's work is to develop what's known as an Essential Understandings Framework, which is information about both our Eastern Shoshone and Northern Arapaho tribes, as well as tribes of the region. And they continue to work on that framework and that document. And I wanted to correct one thing in the memo. There's actually nine members, both in and outside the cabinet, that are working on that. And they hope to have a solid draft by this fall. So that's an aid to our teachers across the state to learn more about our tribal friends. The last meeting of that cabinet also spent a lot of time, the folks did, on absenteeism. And the cabinet really wants to prioritize that and work with the Department of Ed and our local districts to come up with more of a systemic approach to address low absenteeism. So those are a couple of highlights of the cabinet. April 12th and 13th will be the Native American Education Conference right here on this campus. It'll be the 16th version. It's the most popular conference at the department, that the department stages, and we have about 600 people usually attend that. And it seeks to help teachers of Native American students with pedagogy, with understanding challenges and needs of Native students. So that's always a big event. So that's August 12th and 13th. This year's theme is Walking Together, Forging a Collective Path Through Indigenous Knowledge. And I'd like to highlight one of the films we'll show is called Generation Warrior. It was produced and directed here locally, and it's about 8 local youths, Native youth, as they kind of come of age on screen over 4 years. It's a terrific film. We'll be showing that. Finally, in the interest of time, I'll just touch on our social studies standards. They are under review. Quick history lesson: in 2017, the legislature passed what's often called the Indian Ed for All Act, which required the State Department of Education to address the Native history, culture, and contemporary contributions of our 2 tribes, as well as tribes of the region, and to more fully address those issues in our state standards. And that was done in 2018. Those standards are now up for review. All our content areas must be reviewed no less than once every 9 years. So the social studies standards are under review. And I'd just like to point out that the committee's doing great work, and they hope to have a draft by July. The Indian Ed for All standards are remaining. They're being strengthened. They're being more fully integrated into all the standards, whether it's geography, economics, history, civics, and just wanted to give a shout out to that group. 38 educators and business leaders are working hard on those. So those are my main points. So we'll stand for any questions.
Any questions or comments from the committee? Representative Waltman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you both for being here today. It's good to see you. What I was wondering about is when you were saying about there has been improvement, how that's being determined, whether it's, paper, pencil testing or computer tests, or how is that determined? And also, I remember back in like 2017 or maybe before meeting you at one of these meetings, and that was when the No Child Left Behind was brought in, and just that was a strong push. And if you see, because I know you've been in this position for a while, if you see that since that has there been a downturn until now of the results that we've seen in literacy, or is it trending, or what do you see? Because, I mean, was it ever good? I guess is basically what I'm asking.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Ottman. So I'll start with the improvement areas. When we come in, we're not just looking at, one area or one test per se. When we talk about improvements, we do that across the board in a variety of areas, from leadership, instruction, professional development, learning supports, data analysis, of course, and then climate and culture. And so we know that when we improve certain things, it tends to improve in other areas. And so it varies from school to school in what we're discussing. But we did give some specific examples, and I'd like to let the districts kind of elaborate further on that. But we are seeing, and then this next part kind of goes to your second question about achievement and our literacy rates and others within there. Since No Child Left Behind, we had a lot of things that happened, including COVID, and the pandemic was not good for education in general for anyone. And so last year was the first year that we met the same areas or exceeded in some our test scores from the COVID era. So we know we're coming back from that as well. So it's really hard to say whether this is the federal system or if it's coming out of the pandemic or whatnot. But we do know that we're not alone in this story. We're very much modeling right along with national trends. However, Wyoming is always doing better than the other states typically. Typically, we're in the top 4 or top 10 and everything. But it doesn't mean that we still can't improve. And we know that literacy is such a foundational piece of this, that being able to have that done earlier and done well ensures that our students can therefore build on that education and comprehension in all the other areas. And, you know, talking today with you about literacy, we have more work to do. To what extent, we won't know until this fall when we completed that screening process for K-12, but we'll have a really good idea by then. And we have a phased approach to work with the districts on that. And so we'll have more information to say on that and where that's going. The next thing that's going to be coming, though, is math. Nationwide, math is not going well either. And so that'll be our next focus. And when you take those two elements and put them together, you know, your opportunity for success academically improves greatly when literacy and math improve. And so we know where we need to work on. We know exactly where we're at, but we are optimistic that we're heading in the right direction. And we are seeing growth in different test scores. We're seeing growth in different areas of instruction and leadership and professional development in our districts, and with even what we're doing at the department, being able to give back a better sense of return on investment of our supports.
Thank you for all of that. And I know nationwide, to look at test scores of proficiency are not anything that is really wonderful. Our children are at risk. But what I was wondering is, you talked about all of the different things that you've looked at as you've gone around to the different districts and looked. What are the students part of that? Are they interviewed at all? And just a comment from myself is that I believe that the focus on math and reading are above everything, because they can learn or do anything if they can do math and read and just expand from that. So I'm really glad that the focus is on the younger ones for those things, and then they've got plenty of time to go out into some other things. But I know that that's a focus, and I believe that when children are not able to do those things, that it creates a lot of, for lack of a better word, trauma, because I don't want to go, I can't do it, and then all of the other things that have to progress because of education and the things that we need to cover. So thank you for focusing more on that, and I appreciate that, and hope things go really, really well in tribal schools, but also off the reservation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Representative Ottman. Just to note on if we're interviewing students, so when we visit the schools 3 times a year, we meet with the administration, we meet with the local schools, and then we walk them. We go into the classrooms, we talk to the students, like, what are you working on? Where are you at? And that's been very informative for us because, you know, the state system is set up to where the State Board of Education sets the standards for education. And this is where they should be at a certain grade level and at certain rigor and all of that. And then, you know, the instruction piece then is aligned and happens locally. Then the YTOP comes through and assesses, are the students there? Are they meeting? Are the schools there, the districts? Which then triggers the statewide system of support if they're not. And then we kind of come back around on accreditation, other things like that. So it's a system that has to be cohesive. And one of the things that we found as we visit schools is that you can walk into a classroom and see a dynamic educator in there, and they're teaching and the kids are engaged and it's all great, but they might not be at the right standard for that grade level, or they might not be at that right rigor. And so that's an opportunity for us to be able to visit with the districts and the educators and say, you're there, but when you look at this standard, you need to think about this. And that then can change different things as well. And so it's been a really positive opportunity all the way around. And I think we have more work to do together. So
Is there any questions or comments? Representative Guggemos.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just kind of wanted to get your thoughts on something. In our district 25, I noticed, because I sat on that board for a short time. And one thing that I saw was K through 5th, the scores were doing great. And then from 6th through 12th, they tanked. And so I had a meeting with the curriculum people to see what was going on. And they changed curriculum at that point. So I know there's local control going on here, which is fine. But is there any way to address issues like that where the students have learned one way of doing math and then midstream that curriculum gets changed on them and they have to relearn? I put myself in their position. I'd be very frustrated with what's, them changing the whole curriculum on me. And then I'm working just as hard and getting worse grades. So is there any way that we can address those kind of problems?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Guggemos, the department does not direct curriculum, period. But we do have those conversations about, anything that involves stability is better in the long term, whether it's curriculum, the teacher in the classroom, the principal at the school, like maintaining a stability that then sets the tone for what's going to happen is really important. But any kind of change, of course, does have the opportunity to, make that a challenge at some point. And so I think the conversations there, and then that, sometimes in education, we're really good at implementing the new and carrying on, but then not going back to assess, is this the right path? And did we do it well? And that's at the department level, district level, et cetera. And so I think having those conversations and that realization that maybe this was a harder change than we anticipated, what additional supports can we bring in, or what else can we do or do we need to change a path? I think is very positive to happen at the local level and at the state level and together, because that's when real opportunity comes. The other thing to note too is that, we know elementary education is one thing, but there's some other elements that happen in that secondary level, just with our kids in general, with the way their brains are forming and how they process and accept. So that's an additional challenge as well, too. So we know that the major part of all of this is just that engagement piece, just to continue to work on it, to know where the gaps are and how we can do it together. And at the state level, we're very much invested in supporting and collaborating, not dictating to the districts. So.
Is there any other questions or comments for the Department of Ed? Mr. Ratliff.
But you gotta use the microphone, sir.
Is it on?
There you go.
How are you? I'm wondering if we could talk about how Indian Ed for All is working around the state. I know that it's working here, and I know that the Indian Ed conference is really a success and well attended, but how to translate that, what goes on here into a classroom, I think is a bit foggy. And I think oftentimes the school districts are not opposed to teaching Indian Ed for All. They don't have the resource of what shall we teach. These guys have standards saying this is what you should teach, but they don't have the method of doing it. And I think I don't mean this derogatorily, but I think they kind of hide behind, well, we can't dictate curriculum. They can't dictate curriculum, but they certainly can advance some curriculum that could be used. And so it worries me that when Indian Ed for All was passed, the intent was that the state of Wyoming's students would be exposed to what goes on and what the Indian reservation here is about, what the two tribes are about. And I think their intention as well, as was the law. But I think we need to focus a little bit on what do we as a system need to do to make it more available to those schools that don't have the resources of the reservation at their fingertips. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ratliff. Any response?
Mr. Chairman, well, currently we've had these discussions and we're having them with the Native Ed Cabinet as well, which Mr. Ratliff is part of. And we do know that we have, available online 24 different types of resources that are available. We promote them throughout the school year. The superintendent, Degenfelder, has been very, very supportive and working to promote that. I think we could do more. But I think the how is sometimes a challenge when there's so many other things that are also on educators' plates as well. This coming fall, we've invited the Native Ed Cabinet to participate in part of our peer review process and have a member attend these visits to the schools and give feedback. And I think that's a really great opportunity to be able to say, here's where more could be done and here's how you could do it. Because I do think, to Mr. Ratliff's point, is that it is a challenge sometimes when you're just not sure how to do it or how to implement it. And we want to support that as well. But again, I would say that it needs to be a collaborative effort and the state will not dictate that.
Mr. Black?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I would just add that I believe that the ongoing and hopefully soon to be completed social studies standards review will call attention because a lot of those standards will address Indian Ed and tribal issues, tribal history and things like that. That might be an opportunity for our department to, help districts understand what those standards are all about. And as the chief mentioned, we do have resources online. We also have that essential understandings framework that is being developed. So hopefully, all that will come together and we can, in various ways, inform the districts of, hey, here's the new standards. Hey, don't forget there's a lot of Indian education components of those standards. And we're here to help you roll those standards out.
Thank you so much. So any other comments, questions from the committee? Well, thank you so much for the update and what the Department of Education is doing in terms of Indian Ed for All and across the board. I've seen some school districts help you out with your report this morning, so that's good stuff. So thank you for your time, and we'll at this time we'll call the districts up. We have 14, 21, 25, and 38. So the representatives come up here, please. Good morning, gentlemen. If you could introduce yourselves on the record, please.
Morning, Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Blake Bertram, Superintendent, Fremont 14 School District.
My name is Roy Brown. I'm the Federal Programs and Native American Education Director for Fremont County School District 25.
David Holbert, Interim Superintendent, Fremont 38.
Oh, welcome. Obviously, we're talking education issues and availability of tools to address challenging students and Indian Ed for All. So we'll go ahead and go with Blake this morning.
Thanks, Chairman. Just want to start off by telling you guys thank you for all the work you guys did on recalibration. We were really able to give our teachers some nice raises. That was really nice. I know there's a lot of controversy around it still, and I get some of that, but it was really nice to feel like we're actually paying our teachers what they deserve. So I appreciate the work you guys did on that. And just coming off the L3 conference this past week, the CLSD grant, that we all received is going to really be a game changer for us. I know talked about how important literacy is. It is probably, besides language and culture for our school district, it is definitely the thing that's going to move the needle for our kids. So to see that kind of support around improving literacy. And what we're noticing is our kids are getting really solid at word recognition, which is, you know, what we traditionally think about decoding and all the phonics. And if you guys remember the old Dick and Jane books, right? Like that's where that was. Where our kids really struggle is in the language comprehension realm. So I think what's interesting is, you know, a lot of our kids come into our preschool or kindergarten programs with thousands of less words than their peers from off reservation. And a lot of that's just their birth to 5 experience for lots of different reasons. And it's not a bad thing towards like our parents or community. They're doing their best. But I think the fact that the CLSD grant incorporates birth to 5 makes a ton of sense. We got a lot of ideas just at the conference on how we can tackle that in better ways. But I think as you guys are thinking of legislation moving forward and continuing talking about like SF 059 and the literacy legislation, thinking about how you can bring in that birth to 5 experience even heavier makes a lot of sense. Because for us, you know, I think there's always that traditional thinking in schools where the high school blames the middle school because the kids aren't there, you know, they don't have the skills yet, or the middle school blames the elementary. We could also be like, well, our kids aren't coming with all the language skills they need. And I think just making sure we're putting the effort in there, not just pointing a finger, makes a lot of sense. Our parents and our community love our kids. You talk to any of our parents, they'll tell you like our kids are our greatest asset, and they're 100% correct. I think part of it is just giving access and tools to know how to do those birth to 5 experiences and making sure that our parents and our grandparents are versed in that. Because as you guys know, you know, a lot of our grandparents, even just grandparents, were part of the boarding school era. So when you're part of that, often you lose what it meant to have that childhood and what it meant to have that parent sit next to you and read at night. Because you were in a dormitory without a parent next to you. So yeah, I just want to make sure we're really clean on that. I do have a couple things that were said. I think you talked about trauma, but I think the better word for that is apathy. Like our kids get there and they're apathetic because they don't have the skills that they need. And I think you're 100% right. Our kids that struggle at the middle school, high school level are not kids that are just, they don't want to be there. It's just, they're having a hard time accessing that content. And it's easier to hide behind a video game or a screen than go and face something that's hard. You know, it's like if tomorrow you guys all woke up and you had to be physicists and you had to live in that world and solve those kind of problems, you might question whether you want to go to work the next day when that first math problem you came across that was really applicable to your job. If you didn't have that skill, you're like, oh, this isn't me. Our kids are facing that in their English 1 course and their Algebra 1 course. So I do think that curriculum narrative is kind of dangerous. I think we often talk about curriculum being the fix, but you know, we can do things with curriculum like word recognition and vocabulary, and those are good things, but I've yet to see a curriculum that's going to meet all of my kids' needs. Not even close. You know, if I have a group of 22 kids in a classroom, best case, finding a curriculum that can really teach towards about half of them is about as good as I've seen. And that's rare. That's rare in itself. So I'd really like to frame that more around, you know, making sure we have really quality instruction, making sure the standards meet what our kids need, that our teachers really know our kids. That's the big thing. And then they can differentiate. They know, here is the curriculum, here's what we're trying to get accomplished, but this kid is right here right now. How do I scaffold them to get them to grade level? And this kid's already at grade level. How do I give them something that's going to push them even further? And I think that's a lot more important than us talking about things like CKLA and Amplify and all the curriculums that are out there. And they're good, don't get me wrong, but those people that are building those curriculums don't know our kids, and they don't understand the things they're going through. And they truly don't understand that our kids are coming in with some language comprehension issues. And most of those curriculums are heavy in language comprehension. And there's not a lot of good ways to scaffold that. When you talk about how kids take on language comprehension, Just at the CLSD grant, we only have 2 partners. We have 2 research partners for language comprehension. And it is, in my opinion, for not just my school, but I'm willing to bet if we sat and talked around this, probably the biggest issue for our kids when it comes to their learning is really understand. We have kids that can read fluently. They can read 140 words a minute. You throw the Y-top test in front of them, they're a below basic kid. And it's not because they can't read, it's because they literally don't have the background knowledge and vocabulary to understand what's happening in that passage. And before I get off my soapbox and just talk about my district a little bit, I do want to talk, Indian Ed for All has been around for 9 years. And to me, here's when we know it has arrived. When there are questions on our state assessment that are geared towards Indian Ed for All, then I'll know we've taken it serious. I've yet to see that. I feel like, we talk about these things take time. We talk about, we need more curriculum, we need more resources. SF 059, you guys just passed this legislation, correct? We already have a grant that's supporting, I think, 9 school districts, in the course of millions of dollars over the next 5 years. We have rules. We didn't wait a whole year. We have rules. They're partially created. They're going to be in play by July 1. So when we say something's important, when we put support and money behind it, we're saying it's important. Have we really done that for Indian Ed for All? I mean, can we look honestly in the mirror and say, hey, we put that kind of level of support. We made it that important at this point. I can just tell you, my kids, they go to a neighboring school district, an off-reservation school district. I've seen the work towards Indian Ed for All that's happening in that school district, and I'm not trying to name names or anything like that, but it is not teaching my daughter, my son, about Indian Ed for what Indian Ed for All stands for and what it means to be a Northern Arapaho or Eastern Shoshone tribal member on our reservation. It doesn't give them any of that. We're talking coloring teepees. That's the kind of stuff we're seeing on our off-reservation schools when it comes to Indian Ed for All. And that's a border school. That's a school that has access to these reservation materials. If they called, worked with our culture and language department, worked with the tribe, I'm willing to bet we would work with them. We're not talking Gillette and Sheridan, that's how many hundreds of miles away. We're talking 15, 20, 25 miles away. So that's one push I would tell you guys, if we're serious about Indian Ed for All, and we're not just going to make that mouth service or lip service, let's put some support towards it. Let's put some money towards it. Let's give it the same kind of attention that we've given literacy, right? Literacy is important. I'm not going to argue that Indian Ed for All should be higher than that. But it definitely, for our students, and I think bridging some of the things happening in our state, giving that some equal attention or at least close attention would really make a big change. So with that, I'm just going to go over a little bit on our district. Our goal is very simple. I think I've told you guys this before, but really our goal is every student graduates high school and becomes a contributing member of our school, of our community. Mm-hmm. And it's a really simple goal. It goes back to why we have schools, right? Schools were created 150 years ago as a civic project, right? We want to make sure we had good citizens in our state in the United States. And our biggest piece is, we want high test scores. We want kids going off to college. We want all those things. We want to produce doctors, lawyers, but I also want to produce someone that's going to supervise the Blue Sky Hall. And I want to make sure I have some teachers that come from my community. I want to make sure I have custodians. Mm-hmm. I want to make sure I have someone that's working down at the E-City store. I want to make sure all of that's covered from within our school district. And it's okay, regardless if you're that doctor or if you're the clerk at E-City store, that's okay. Like, you're still a contributing member of our community, right? And it doesn't make you better or worse. So the big thing, I think I talked to you guys last time, is we're working hard to get some pathways off the ground to give kids opportunities, whether it's auto mechanics or building trades, still having a college pathway, having like a pathway for CNAs, for early education. We have a good solid plan to get our education pathway off the ground next year. So we're gonna have some of our students actually play somewhat of a para role in our elementary and middle school, our high school juniors and seniors. And that's the kind of That's the kind of stuff that we're really working towards. We're going to still put a lot of effort into literacy. It's huge. It's going to be the gateway for a lot of those. But we really don't want to continue keeping a model of school that we've had for the last 20, 30 years that really hasn't been impactful to our students. Has it been good for kids maybe in other districts? Sure, it has. Our kids, I can tell you, traditionally we're graduating 50 to 60% of our students, and those students that aren't graduating, their life is pretty grim. We're talking life expectancy gets cut, 30 years, quality of life, they usually aren't working. There's a lot. And then you start bringing that into a gender role. Our males, if they don't graduate high school, it's rare to see them really, if we talk about it being a contributing member of our community, it's really rare. Our females in our community are really holding everything together. So we have a few different things to tackle that way, but I guess what it comes down to is, we're going to make sure high expectations are there. We're going to continue to build systems to support for our interventions, both behavior and academic. All that's going to keep happening, but we really see the vehicle for having our kids meet our goal is making sure they understand who they are as a Northern Arapaho and Eastern Shoshone student, like what that means, them revitalizing their language, and then them seeing a clear pathway of what they could be as an adult, right? So that's that idea of, hey, I have this huge interest in being a welder. We want to get to the point where we're pushing our English class, our math class into that welding classroom, and they're getting all their credits in welding. So that's our kind of our long-term goal, and I'm hoping that we can do this as a reservation and not just as individual districts, but it's a big undertaking and it's not a quick fix. In the meantime, like I said, we appreciate the recalibration support. We appreciate what that funding has done for us. We really appreciate what you guys are doing with the literacy stuff. I will tell you though, like SF59 and CLSD grant, even though they're in parallel, what I am telling my district and what I've already told my leadership, like I don't want to look at the CLSD grant as this is for compliance to meet this policy and this legislation. CLSD grant for me is really there because our kids need to improve their literacy skills, and it gives us an opportunity to get the expertise to do that, not to meet compliance on legislation. And I think that's the key there is, you guys can legislate all you want and you can come up with the greatest ideas, but in the end, our teachers are the ones that have to do it. And if we only do it at compliance level, we're not going to get the results that your legislation intends. So it's really important as we build this legislation that you guys are working with us to make sure that we're putting this out at a level that we're seeing the value in it. Our staff sees why it's important. Our community, our students see why it's important. And it's not just, oh, we checked that box. We've met the minimum requirements for SF 059, so we're good to go. If that's what we're about, if that's what legislation is about, then we're not going to see the results that the legislation intends. So I just want to keep that in mind. And the big reason I say that is it worries me a little bit how quickly we're coming up with these rules for SF 59. I'm going to be super honest, and I know I'm on the record, but I feel that's very political right now, that we're pushing those really quick. When we did the K-3 literacy bill, we took a whole year figuring out vendors. We figured out who our screening partners were. We actually had educators on that panel making those decisions. We haven't been involved in any of these rules that have been put together for 59. It's been all through the WDE. And that scares me. I'm going to be super honest with you guys about that. So with that, I will stand for questions or move it on to someone else.
Any questions or comments from the committee? If not, we'll move on to District 21. Good morning, Zambechu.
Zambechu. Ni Divonai Deb Smith, Ni Sosuri. I'm Deb Smith. I am an Eastern Shoshone woman. I am the superintendent of Fremont County School District 21 in Fort Washakie. I apologize for being late. I was dealing with summer school bus issues. So I I guess what I'll do is give an update. I agree with most of what my fellow superintendent has said as far as education and things to look at on the reservation. I do want to add to what he said as far as Indian education for all. I think that is a key priority across the state. Having grown up in Wyoming as a Native student in an off-reservation school, there was never a priority about learning about either tribe. And I still see that today. And I'm well into my 50s. So I think we need to push more, not just from the reservation schools knowing who we are and where we come from, but across the state knowing which tribes are here and have been here before time immemorial, and what those tribes have contributed to our great state of Wyoming. Because as a Native person, we shouldn't have to be the one to always be advocating on behalf of our tribes. People that are Wyomingites should know. They should be sharing that great history. So enough of my soapbox. We're doing some good things in our district. Of course, our test scores haven't been great, but we're making progress. We've seen some growth in areas. We are doing some career pathways. Starting this year, we've partnered with CWC, so we're offering a CNA course right on campus. We're going to do some other career pathways in the medical field, in agriculture, in trying to partner with courses and careers that our students can grow into beyond high school, either in a college track or a career track. We are incorporating more Northern Arapaho language up in Fort Washakie, so we're advertising for 2 language teachers to build that curriculum and programming so that our students can benefit from both tribes. Right now, we only offer Eastern Shoshone language and culture, so we're expanding that because not all of our students are Shoshone, and our communities, and each community on the reservation is pretty much mixed. So we're trying to offer more for our students. We do have students that have left our district to either go to a district down the road from us or off the reservation to these border schools. And we're trying to track those students more closely and offer more at our high schools so that our students will stay in our district. We've had some good numbers as far as graduation rates the past few years. We've been increasing our graduation rates. However, we do need to do more as far as academics and engagement. And that's across the nation. It's not just in our reservation schools, but I do echo what the previous colleagues have said, because we communicate quite frequently. Trauma is big. COVID really hit all of us hard, and it's still there. I mean, it hasn't gone away. We've learned to deal with it, but we still have families and children that are seeing those effects over the years, and it has impacted them both academically, social, emotionally, and for some families financially, because people have not been able to rebound from the loss of a job or the loss of the caregiver that passed away. So we're doing what we can to meet our children's needs, and we meet them at the door with a friendly smile, with, hey, we're glad that you're here. And we hope that they've had a good weekend, or they've had a good night, they've had a good rest and some good food. And we try and offer that safe haven at school. We are trying to be that support system for them. And so the kids know that they're safe there and they can relate with someone, whether it be a teacher, whether it be a para, the bus driver, a cook, a librarian. We are there for our students first and foremost. We try and make good relationships with families. And a lot of that takes time, and we have to deal with that before we can wrap our kids' brains around math and reading and science and social studies. And I know in the past, our district has been trying to do a lot of reading intervention, a lot of math intervention at the sake of cutting into our social studies times, our science times, and enrichment times. And we've kind of come full 360 with that and have changed things up, because you don't just read during reading intervention. You read during science, you read during math, you read during social studies. So we are doing a more balanced curriculum, and we have very dedicated staff that are very good at what they do. And we are also getting the comprehensive language grant through the state. And so I feel confident that our teachers are going to be receptive to that training and what we need to do just to step up. My only hope is that we can do that with math at one point. So I'll have questions.
Any questions or comments from the committee? Well, thank you, Superintendent Smith. We will move on to District 25. Mr. Brown?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to iterate how encouraged I am that you are receiving testimony and have an agenda item regarding the access to alcohol and drugs for minors. That's something that I put in our updates, is in terms of what we are struggling with at District 25 is the students' access to those substances and how that might impact their behavior, how that might impact their desire to receive education. And I think that's something that we have focused on a lot in the past, but haven't really came up with a lot of solutions. And so I'm hoping this is a step forward to creating more solution-focused work when it comes to how these students are impacted by the access to alcohol and drugs. So with that, I'll move on to just a different topic. We've included in our reports some of the ways that we are helping students and we are helping teachers address behaviors from students who are challenging. And I think we have a lot of innovative approaches, but I think a lot of that is really, from our perspective anyway, mostly district focused initiatives. And so there's not a lot of funding in terms of like, how do we educate these students? How do we make sure that we're getting through to these students? We are using our district's funds to be able to implement these tier 2, tier 3 models of support for these students without any support from the foundation, from the model. So I think that might deserve a closer look in terms of how do we actually make sure that these students are supported through the educational model. And so I think we're on a path that makes sense for us. And it's probably something that is largely district based and largely focused on individual students, but there might be an opportunity for the legislature to look into how do we actually fund some of those efforts. One of the other things that I wanted to mention in terms of legislative actions is just to bring your attention to something that I think is maybe an unintentional impact, but through Hathaway, to access the highest tiers of Hathaway, you can certainly take an indigenous language and that count as a world language, but in order to access the highest pathway, you have to take 2 years of world language. Now, that's all well and good, but those 2 years actually have to be successive. So for us in Fremont 25, This graduating class of 2027 will be the first graduating class that can access the highest tier of Hathaway by taking an indigenous language. So before then, we didn't offer an Arapaho 2 class, a year-long Arapaho 2 class. And so I think there is an unintended consequence for Hathaway where it's requiring districts to provide 2 years of successive world language classes in order to access that highest tier. And it's some of the students are left out. And I think I probably went to the only high school in the universe where Arapaho, Shoshone, and Spanish was offered, and it was Fremont 14. I don't think that exists anywhere else. And so for us, it's been a struggle for us to really get our kids to take that indigenous language and be eligible for Hathaway without it being detrimental to them. So I think that's something that the legislature can look at and just make a little tweak. I think I can certainly understand the benefits of having 2 years of the successive world language, but I think for a lot of us, it does kick a lot of kids out from accessing that.
Mr. Chairman, what would you suggest the tweak? Waive the requirement for some students? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, if I were making a suggestion, it would be to not have that successive requirement. So if I were a student in high school, it would open up the ability for me to take an Arapaho 1 language class and a Spanish 1 language class and still qualify for the highest tier of Hathaway.
Would you suggest we do that all around Wyoming?
Yes.
Yeah. We might ask the department about that when we, not at this time, but
yeah,
a little later. Thank you.
Yep.
District 38.
Committee, thank you for having us here today. Getting to go last means that I get to be brief because they've said one way or another most of the things. I know that one of the things that we were asked to present is challenges, and the challenges we face at Fremont 38 are very similar to the challenges they face at 14 and 21. Poverty is a big deal, and the effects of intergenerational trauma rear their heads, and we work hard to deal with that. One of the big things that helps is absolutely the fact that, and I can't take credit for this in any way, shape, or form, but the improvement in the language and culture classes we have where our students are gaining more of an identity. That goes a long way in helping how our students interact with education. Without that, it really leaves them going, why on earth am I here? I know one of the other topics that is to be discussed is truancy, and I'll just give a very brief statement about that. In my 14 years at Fremont 38 in a variety of positions, every few years, truancy comes up. And through the tribal courts or the DFS, this is my first time with experience with this committee, so I won't speak for you all or as far as the engagement, but they will come up with a plan. They'll present the plan to the district. The district will start engaging because truancy is a significant issue. Generally what happens is they say, bring us the list of students that have X number of absences or something along those lines. We get that information there. This is my belief because I'm not actually in the room, but by the time they get those reports from 3 different reservation schools, they go, wow, this is more than we can handle, and it falls by the wayside. Like I said, I've been a part of filling out a lot of those forms, and within 2 to 3 months of starting, we stopped bothering. We, at one point, were sending our SRO up to the tribal courts with the reports, and he said one time that they looked at it and said, we're not even doing this anymore. And so they sent him back with the stack of reports. So I agree that it's an issue. I don't have the great solution. But I do appreciate that it is being looked at. And like I said, I'll leave that for the challenges and truancy, because you all have heard from others, and why hear from me saying the same thing. A couple things regarding I kind of lump the K-12 literacy law and the CLSD grant. I'll talk about those kind of together a little bit. I was a math coach for the district for many years before I moved into central office and started doing stuff there. But I fully support the fact that the K-12 literacy law came first. As a math teacher, math coach, if you can't read, there's no job out there where they say, here's 50 math problems, solve them, and we'll pay you for the day. If there was, I wouldn't be sitting here, because I would be that guy that was going, yes, I can solve 50 algebra problems today. I'm that big of a nerd. But so the K-12 literacy law, I fully support. There are some parts of it that, of course, nobody's going to agree with every part of the legislation. But I really believe in the idea behind the K-12 literacy law. The CLSD grant is going to go a long way for us to be able to meet both the letter and the spirit of that law. I don't know, honestly, districts that don't have the CLSD grant, and I'll get into part of this in a moment, I don't know how they're going to be able to meet the expectations that are laid out in that law. So I am very appreciative of the support we're getting through the CLSD grant. One of the things I greatly appreciate is that the grant has a true focus on best practices in the classroom. It's not teach this and this and this. It's how do we reach students better? How do we teach this better? And that's a place where we're in need. If you look at our literacy scores, K2, we use the Dibbles test for measuring for a screener. That measures how they are, and it's a norm reference test, so it's nationally normed. Our students, we are far ahead of where we were pre-COVID with the results there. I don't have the exact numbers, but generally we're getting around 80% proficient or above on the Dibbles test. Like Mr. Bertram was mentioning, it's in the language comprehension. If we talk to somebody from Arizona about tidal pools, a fifth grader is probably going to look at you and have no clue what a tidal pool is, but a kid in Washington State is like, oh yeah. So that's where we need to improve, is how do we meet that part of it. In science of reading, and like I said, I'm a math nerd, so I'm only conversant in literacy. Scarborough's rope is a foundation of what science of reading is built on, and they've got their foundational reading skills and then their comprehension side. There's two halves to the rope that intertwine as you move forward in education. We are getting the bottom half of Scarborough's rope down, the teaching of the phonics, phonemic awareness, and all of those pieces. Where we're struggling is, as mentioned, in the comprehension side of things. And I think that's part of where that grant is going to help us, is because that's going to reach into our secondary teachers and help them know how to teach literacy in whatever their content area is. As a math teacher, I have to teach students how to read. I had students that read a math question that was talking about widgets. Now, this is when I was in a suburban school in Texas, and it said widgets, and I had probably 2/3 of my class look at me and be like, I can't do this problem. And it was like, why? Because I don't know what a widget is. Who cares what a widget is? Read the rest of the problem and those kind of things. So this gives those core content teachers that ability to be able to teach those things. And so that's very much appreciated. My fear for the K-12 literacy law goes back to a little bit of what Mr. Bertram mentioned, is the emergency rules. My normal job is in the district is curriculum director. I'm happy to be stepping in as superintendent for the time being, but at the curriculum directors conference in May, we discussed the emergency rules. They scare me a little bit because of how rushed they have been. When the draft rules came out, an example of how rushed they were was in the professional development hours that teachers are required to have. They would have the numeral 5 and in parentheses the word 7, or it might be reversed where it was the word 7 and in parentheses 5. That, yeah, I don't want this law to fail. And what I'm afraid of is if we don't get the rules right when they come out, that it's setting it up for failure later. I won't describe it how I described it at the curriculum directors conference because I didn't know that I was going to start a trend. But if we screw this up on July 1st, that law won't be worth the paper it's written on. You'll end up with districts that are scrambling to check boxes and not improve literacy. So that's something that I strongly encourage, is that we make sure that the rules, when they come out, that they are correct. It's not something you can typically get a second chance at, or not in my lifetime or not in my time as an educator. If it's messed up the first time around, it'll be 5 to 10 years or longer before it can come back around and be done right. The other bit of a concern I have with the draft rules, beyond just the rushed nature and the ability for school districts to get it right, is in the law it talks about high quality curriculum. How do we judge what high quality curriculum is? At Arapahoe, we acknowledged that our fluency, our foundational reading skills, we were getting pretty good at. We're getting those Dibble scores looking pretty good. So when we were looking, our comprehension scores are low. So what we did was we were very intentional. We adopted UFLY, which is the University of Florida Literacy Initiative, which is nationally recognized. I was at my in-laws this weekend, and somebody that does teach in Florida was talking about how fantastic UFLY is. We adopted that to continue our foundational reading skills. We looked at different programs, and American Reading Company, ARC, was going to, we firmly believed, was going to meet the expectations of, or what we needed to grow our students on the comprehension side. So we adopted that one. We knew that ARC was not necessarily a premier program for foundational reading skills. So we made sure we got 2. If in the review, WDE determines that ARC does not meet high quality instructional materials, they're going to tell us that we can't use it. We were very intentional about what we did. And that to me feels like it's approaching that idea of dictating curriculum, which we know can't happen. So those are my main concerns with kind of where the K-12 literacy law is going. Like I said, I'm a huge supporter of it. I know that it was modeled a lot after Mississippi, and we saw that Mississippi took their reading scores and turned them around and are now well above the national average and competing with some of the very top states in the nation. I want us to be that or better, but I don't want it screwed up. Supports, I know that was a big part of what WDE discussed. They overall have been very supportive of us and helpful. We have worked closely with them, and the statewide system of supports, we meet with them multiple times a year, and that work is very appreciated. And just sometimes it's just a confirmation that what we're doing isn't insane, or it is a nudge in a direction that we hadn't thought of. And those are appreciated, along with the professional development they supply. One thing with the WDE report, and I won't say I take issue with, but in the packet that was supplied, Fremont 38 had a very large section of concerns. We are the only district on the reservation that has made K-8 growth targets 3 consecutive years. Our high school, the numbers are not going to look good on our high school typically. The reason why is our charter school, we bring in students that have been unsuccessful in other districts. Where it's back to, we're a K-8 school with a charter high school. So when we're looking at the students that we take at our high school, over half of them have been unsuccessful at another school in the area. So when you take on that clientele, I'm very proud of the work that is done there, but it does make it much more difficult to get the graduation numbers, the state testing numbers, when those are the students that you bring in. So that's one thing that I wanted to make note of, is that we do that as a choice, and we will continue to do that as a choice. And it may hurt us on accountability ratings, but we're not doing it for accountability ratings. We're doing it because, as was mentioned before, if we have a student that drops out, look at their life expectancy, look at their income potential, and they're both horrible. So we work really hard to do that. And when I say we, it's the staff at the high school that does that. I support it, but I'm not going to try and take credit for other people's work and those pieces. So with that, I believe that's all I had, and I'll stand for any questions.
Co-Chairman Case?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, thank you. There's several things I'd like to follow up on here, but there's definitely a piece I'm missing. And it has to do with the discussion you had about the 2-year language requirement for Hathaway. And that yet every one of you have talked about the importance of implementing a cultural program and adding that to the curriculum, and how that's been a success factor. So why isn't that working? I assume that's more than 2 years. So does it not count? Is it not all students take it? Are we failing to implement that? Or what am I missing? Why that doesn't fulfill it? What am I missing? You all mentioned it.
Mr. Chair, I think I can answer that one since I have the microphone right here already. It does meet the requirements for Hathaway within our districts. So because we offer Arapahoe 1, 2, and 3, and sometimes 4, students that have completed that do qualify for the different tiers of Arapahoe. It's more difficult for 25 to be able to have that offering and those pieces to go into that depth. And so I think that's more where that's from. For our students, at our high school with the Hathaway, generally there, it's the other issues that I was just discussing that prevent them from meeting the highest level of Hathaway. But at the other schools, they probably have more students that are than we do, but it's not because of the language. But I can definitely see for Riverton, Lander, Wind River, those schools that the wanting to be able to meet the needs of students as far as their language and culture interferes with their ability to also get the highest level of Hathaway.
So let me you got to break it down for me here. So does that mean that Lander and Riverton don't have the Native American language programs, basically? Is that they just don't have it? But yet students choose to go there, and so they miss that, so they have to pick the language another way, they don't necessarily. It's not typical for them to do the 2-year language in something else. Am I saying that right?
I would speak to this. My daughter just graduated from Lander. They don't offer Shoshone or Arapaho language at the time being. And she took Spanish, but she didn't want to take 2 years of Spanish. And the Arapaho wasn't offered to her. So she didn't meet that higher level of Hathaway.
Okay, I think I get it. Mr. Brown?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So just, thank you. Just in terms of using Fremont 25 as an example, we've only ever offered 1 year of Arapaho language, like the instruction. So any student who wanted to take an Arapaho language and fulfill the graduation requirements would also have to take a Spanish one. And so because they would do that, they're not eligible for Hathaway. So until this upcoming year, students will now have an option to take a RAPO 1 and a RAPO 2. But I can imagine other students in other districts have different cultures and different backgrounds. So for example, if a student who is both Shoshone and Arapaho might want to take Arapaho 1 and Shoshone 1, if they did that to fulfill their 2-year language requirement, they still wouldn't be eligible for that higher tier of Hathaway. So it's that successive language that you have to take language 1 and language 2 to meet the needs of Hathaway.
Mr. Chairman, I really do appreciate that. That helped me. Mr. Chairman, in terms of school funding and the recalibration that the legislature went through last year, it seemed like what I heard was that basically that has provided classroom resources and improved teacher pay. Every other district I've talked to are mad about the activities program and they're just madder than hornets. And parents are madder than hornets. They'll stop me in the grocery store and they say, "Why did you do this? Our kids need this money." And you didn't complain about that. That made me feel good, actually, but I'd like to hear more about that.
I can talk about that a little bit. We have the flexibility of impact aid dollars, and that's why we're not complaining about it. Yeah. So basically, the downfall that I think other districts are seeing with recalibration is that instructional silo. I totally understand the intent of the instructional silo, but just talking to other superintendents across the state, it's really hurting some operation stuff. Like I talked to a superintendent saying, basically they were going to be $800,000 in the black on operations, but 500 grand in the red over here, like, or vice versa. So just that we have the flexibility that other districts don't. That said, I understand other districts and why they're advocating for what they're advocating for. I support their advocation of having some flexibility within that instructional silo, but we are blessed with the idea that we have this additional funding.
I get that. I got one more if I could, Mr. Chairman. I get that completely and I appreciate it. I wasn't thinking about that. The last thing was the truancy thing. What I heard from this discussion about truancy is, well, everybody's just given up. And that one doesn't work very well with me. I think the whole truancy issue, I got to give Affie Ellis a lot of credit for pushing us thinking about making sure children are in classes. And I know it just seemed like this fact that, well, the courts don't want to do it. I don't know what works. Penalties don't seem to work. Incentives seem to work better, but I felt like the way this discussion ended was that there's nothing we can do about it. And it seems really unacceptable to me. So help me.
Mr. Chair, Committee, I apologize if I made it seem as though we as a district are not doing things. It's the outside support that we have not been able to do. We got our K-8 attendance up over 90% this year, I believe. And spring semester, our high school was a little more rocky, but we were in the high 80s at our high school for first semester and those pieces. So we do have initiatives within our school. We even have gotten to where, and I know this drives our transportation director nuts, but we are sending out Suburbans to go get kids and bring them to school in those pieces. We do have incentives built in. We have seen our attendance rates increase over the years that I've been at Arapahoe. Sometimes our numbers look worse because we have a small subset of students that miss a tremendous amount of school. And we contact parents, send letters home. Teachers are calling and saying, "Hey, we miss your student," and those things, and those all help. But there is that small subset of students that so far I have not been able to and in my research. So we as a school district are still trying. It's the work with some of the other agencies that I don't have an answer for because we don't control them and those pieces. So we are working hard, and I apologize that it came across as we gave up. It was more of the interagency efforts were where we have, we make a good faith effort to begin with, but then it falls apart. So
And it was tribal courts and tribal law enforcement that fell apart?
DFS and tribal courts. Yes, both.
Tribal DFS.
Yes, tribal DFS, Northern Arapaho and Shoshone DFS. That's primarily who we have contact with, even for the students that come out of Riverton. They tend to fall under one of those two.
Thank you.
I would like to
Senator Salazar.
I would like to speak to the truancy issue. Oh, sorry.
Superintendent Smith.
I agree with Fremont 38. The truancy issue, we have a small population of students that are habitually truant. Yeah, we work with Shoshone, Arapaho, both DFSs. We work with Fremont County DFS for those students that are not enrolled members but may live on the reservation or from another tribe. So I would say that mental health services, I know we've had some funding through WDE and through the state, but it's not enough. In fact, our district, I believe, received $55,000 for the mental health grant, and that went to one of our counselors to do some small group instruction specifically targeted towards trauma-informed care for kids. But reservation-wide, Fremont County-wide, statewide, nationwide, there's a need for more mental health services and mental health providers. And it's lacking because we can't just treat the child at school. We need to work with those families and in our community. And that if there's one thing that I would advocate for is for more access to resources, not just funding, but training programs, care providers, different ways to look at how we provide services for our family and community members.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Brown.
Thank you. I also just wanted to make a comment about a response about that. It does feel like as districts, we are constantly trying to implement resources and roll out resources to combat the attendance issues. But it does sometimes feel like there is a wave every half a decade where state agencies start to get involved. I don't know that I think several of you on this committee are familiar with the efforts of the Triad MEC maybe 20 years ago. That was a huge push, and then that just lost steam. And then it just feels like every 5 or 10 years, the state feels like they want to be involved. And so then we start these big attendance efforts. And I do credit former Senator Ellis on really pushing some of this attendance issues forward, but it does feel like we are constantly dealing with that. We just don't ever have the continued or the sustained support from other agencies. And so I think that's probably I'm not trying to speak for anyone else, but that probably feels like what is the sentiment from the districts of like, okay, until you start caring about it, we'll care about it. But we are constantly addressing those issues.
Permission to speak?
Superintendent Bertram.
Thanks. Sorry to interrupt again, but I want to illustrate that as it's really a systemic issue. If you think about some of the biggest successes we've had in our districts in previous years, it's really been through multi-tiered system of support. So beyond just what's happening every day in the classroom, it's all those interventions. We do a lot of that in-house, right? Like how can we tackle this problem internally within our district? But it's really about getting the key people in the room. So like what I've been advocating for and have had not much traction behind this year is getting, a couple representatives from both DFSs, some law enforcement, some people from tribal courts, some people from both councils and the superintendents and even some teachers in the same room, as well as some community members, and meet, whether it's quarterly or monthly, and really address these things, because they're bigger than just, oh, a kid's not showing up. Some of it's because, DFS is overwhelmed. They don't have places to place students or to place those kids. Some of it's that tribal courts are overwhelmed. So all that just turns into, how do we triage this? So the kids that need the most support, the families that need the most support, we have a way to give that to them. And right now we're triaging as though this kid that has 82% attendance is just as important as the kid that's got 27%. And, we might not be doing that internally within our district. We might be giving additional support, but as a whole, the system as a whole, with all these agencies working together, that's kind of how it works. And I don't think we're going to solve that individually by districts. I'm going to be honest, I think we've kind of peaked out on what we can do individually. We're going to keep trying. Don't get me wrong. We're going to keep putting money towards it and time towards it. But a lot of these system issues really need to be solved collaboratively for us to get some more traction. And I'm okay if the state comes in and says, hey, here's some new legislation around attendance. I don't think that's going to be the lever for us on this, though. I really think it's getting, especially for us, getting these tribal agencies together with us to talk about what's going on and how can we solve some of these things. We have so many students that need other placements, and our group homes are full. I've been a foster parent. There's not enough foster parents out there. It's much bigger than just kids don't want to come to school.
Yes, I think before I send it over to Senator Salazar, there's a lot more other factors also. A lot of grandparents are part of the picture, that are raising kids. I know when I met with a Arapahoe school a while back, and Katie was in that meeting also, where we talked about this issue, and it's a tough one. But I'll turn it over to Senator Salazar.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, thank you for you all for being here. Let me address recalibration. As you know, we're going to, recalibration is not over. We're going throughout the summer to deal with additional issues on recalibration. We're talking about food services, safety officers, one-to-one computer funding. So we're not at all finished yet. But to the point of student activities funding, I'm very hopeful. No, let me say this. That issue is going to be on our agenda next week, and I am confident that we have found a solution to take care of that problem and to take care of schools who are having that problem. So I feel confident we will take care of it. Since that meeting is occurring in Lander, I would encourage you to come, give testimony, because I am going to have testimony, and I would love to hear from you folks. We're going to take care of this. We'll take care of it. So I wanted to just pass that along, but thank you again for your testimony today.
That's going to make the trips to the grocery store a lot easier on me, I swear.
Is there any other questions or comments from the committee for our panel here? Representative Ottman.
First off, I just want to thank each and every one of you for being here, because if you weren't, as you're 4 different districts, so you have a commonality, but also different issues because of different populations, whether or not you're primarily tribal or mixed or whatever. So I want to thank you for that. And your idea about having everybody at the table, I know we met in Lander here last fall, I think, and to listen to everyone's ideas and opinions in a surrounding where nobody felt threatened because they were on Zoom or that they were going to get in trouble was very, very good. I know one of the districts, and this is quite a few years ago, but just for Wyoming history in 4th grade, it was kind of a semi-requirement, but often put to the side because of the science requirements. And so those children, for quite a few years, did not get any Wyoming history at all. And I found that pretty amazing to think, why not? Why is that not a priority? So just to hear you, I think I'm hearing prioritization amongst requirements. And I appreciate that. So I'm glad to be on this committee. It helps to understand a lot of things, not really answer everything, but just to hear that. Do you see that, my question, do you see that looking at education from a statewide venue and then dealing with, like you 4 districts are here today, then we have 4 other districts in the county. Do you think there needs to be collaboration there or consideration? Or because I know at the school that I worked with, there was a large population of Native American young people. And there was different societal things, like whether or not they felt like they could relate to a Caucasian woman, you know, whether they could look you in the eye, whether they could feel comfortable. All of those things had to be taken into consideration. I did work with remediation in math and reading for K-5. And I just want to say that that was one of the most fulfilling jobs that I've ever had, to see the improvements, but also to be able to talk one-on-one with them. So whatever your comments, please continue to do that, because that's what's going to make the changes, because nobody knows the steps that you're in. And one question then would be, is remediation something that you do on your curriculum things? And the second, as superintendents, do you see that your boards understand and work with you on all of those things? Because you primarily come before the state. So is there a block there, or is it pretty smooth?
With our school board, they're very involved in that. So they're part of our strategic plan. We go over that piece, and we don't really call it remediation more. We call it intervention, but it's really all part of our multi-tiered system of support, both for reading and literacy, but also for behavior as well. We have supports in place there. I don't see our school board as being a block there. I feel like they're very supportive and have done a lot of work to have understanding behind it as well. But just like I spoke with the attendance issue, sometimes our systems are overwhelmed. When you have a situation where, you know, well over half your students have a language comprehension issue, it's really hard to intervene every student that needs that. And then to top that off, there are not a ton of high quality language comprehension interventions or curriculums. Like I said earlier, we really only had 2 partners, research partners in language comprehension as part of that CLSD grant. One is AuxEd, and they're geared towards pre-K through 1st grade. Another is Language Dynamics, and they're K-12, but don't have a lot of research in that middle school, high school, just kind of dipping their toe in there. So like how to take our high school or middle school students that have language deficiencies or language comprehension deficiencies and like really intervene on that. It's not that we don't want to. It's sometimes we're like, what does that look like? There's not a lot of research and resources geared, especially at our upper, upper elementary, middle school, and high school students. How do they take on language if they're already 10, 12, 15 years old and that deficiency or deficit's still there?
Permission.
If there is no more questions or comments.
Permission to speak, sorry.
Smith.
I have a soft voice. It's very similar to what Superintendent Bergstrom just said, but our board, we do a lot of information and a lot of training as far as the literacy piece, our curriculum, and things like that. but I don't think our board, they're not all educators. They, you know, community members, they're run for the office and they're voted in. So their depth of understanding the whole education system is limited to being a board member and hearing what we're telling them. But there seems to be questions that come up at every meeting. Why are we doing this? Why is this a requirement? And then it seems like every month or every few weeks, we have more and more and more. There's more data reports that are due. There's more audits. There's more information that we have to share to different departments within the whole Department of WDE. And it just seems like sometimes it's very overwhelming as superintendents. And for our school boards to try and digest all of that information is hard at times. They're very supportive of the students. They're very supportive of doing what we can to meet our students' needs. But it just seems like I'm constantly advising, I'm constantly providing information, and there's questions over and over and over and over. So I think there has to be some kind of more training maybe at the State Department of Education when they have their conference, just in general on certain things more in depth, because we try and give as much information as we can in limited amount of times. And then we're moving on to the next thing that we have to say, oh, and another thing, we have to do this, and another thing, we have to do this, and it can be overwhelming. So I know all of the boards out here on the reservation are charged with the tough task of trying to support what we can for our students reservation wide, but it's hard. It's very hard.
Thank you. The process sounds very cumbersome, you know, and there's more added to it as time goes by. But I really appreciate the panel and the wide range of issues that you presented to the committee this morning. I know a couple of things I was going to touch on recalibration, but both senators beat me to the punch there. And but one thing I know you was talking about some of the Hathaway standards or requirements, and Superintendent Smith mentioned about the possibility or the lack of tribal language being part of that process. I know on the Shoshone side, it's hard to find instructors, you know, language teachers. I think the Arapaho side is kind of going down too in terms of, so I think we need to really, I don't know how we approach that, but I think something really needs to be done there soon. You know, I know here at the college, we haven't had a Shoshone language instructor for 15 years, maybe, you know, and I know those numbers are dwindling as time goes by, but if the committee here could take our notes and pass something before tomorrow to see how we approach that, I think it'd probably be, I don't know what that is. I know we got members of the education committee on this on this committee also. So, but I'd like to thank you for your time and efforts this morning and for taking care of our young people. Another question, what's the status of, two questions. How many graduated from the Arapaho Charter School this year? And what's the process of becoming a full high school, I guess?
Thank you. So we set a record again for number of graduates with 22. So that was felt really good. We may not match that next year, but that was really nice. So the process of becoming a unified school district, I brought that up at the last meeting, and I learned that it had less to do with you all than I thought initially. So the process is that I need to bring an application to the boundary board, which is the county commissioners, the assessor, and I just forgot the last member of the boundary committee. And I will bring a proposal to them. Honestly, with everything I've had going on, I wanted to get farther on this at this point. I'm now hoping to meet with Tara Berg to go through some of the process and get those pieces in place. have a proposal to the boundary board probably in August. And the reason I'm shooting for August now is that'll be when we're coming back to school. They wanted to have a meeting with the community to make sure that the community was interested in this and it wasn't just some random guy at the district saying, hey, we should do this. And then if they like what they hear, then they would propose to the State Board of Education that we become a K-12 district. I've had different input. When I started in education, I hoped I would never make the newspaper because usually educators don't make the newspaper for any good reason. I've been in County 10 more than I ever would have imagined, and some people reached out to me. What I'm not sure of is the information I got was that the rule of 500 is if you are at 500, they're required to give you a school or make you a K-12 district. If you're under 500, it's an application process like what we're going through right now. There's some people that still feel that that 500 number has to be hit before they'll consider going to K-12. So I've heard both sides of it. I've heard people say both things in my time at Arapahoe. I'm really hoping for the latter because we will hit 500 if we become a K-12 district, but our ability to become a K-12 district, our ability to hit 500 prior to that is limited by both the fact that we don't get to have a high school that will house more than about 60, 65 students, and because just not real easy to hit that number until we become unified. So that's where we stand on that. Like I said, I wish I could say that we were farther along in the process, but I'm holding down 2 jobs right now, so it's interesting.
Well, thank you. Before we break, we're going to take a 5-minute break, but I want to acknowledge Chairman Grossbeck and Councilmember Crispin. Welcome this morning. So we're going to take a 5-minute break here, and we're going to come back with truancy, minors access to drugs and alcohol. Thank you, Superintendent. Okay, we're going to get back on our agenda here. Next is truancies and minors' access to drugs and alcohol, and we'll have the people that are mentioned in our agenda to go ahead and come up and sit up front. There was a Wyoming Department of DFS, Northern Arapaho and Eastern Shoshone DFS, Wind River Tribal Court, and I'm not too sure. There's Fremont County Sheriff's Office, the Fremont County Treatment Courts and Youth Services, White Buffalo and Doyanatsu Tribal Program. So if y'all want to pull up a chair and we will go ahead and get started. I know this has been a agenda item for a while now, and we want to go ahead and have some discussion. I know we listened to some truancy issues from the school districts just prior to this. Obviously, Chairman Case mentioned that the minors' access to drugs and alcohol continues to be an important issue also. So we'll go ahead and start with Wyoming Department of DFS. We'll go in order in terms, you could just pull up a chair also, another additional chair.
We will bring more tables.
Yeah, we'll bring a longer table. And if you could introduce yourself for the record, please.
Good morning, Chairman, Co-Chairman. I'm Jennifer Neely with the Wyoming Department of Family Services. I am a district manager and I also serve as the agency's tribal liaison.
And I am Shelley Ann Banu, the Director for the Northern Arapaho Department of Family Services and Indian Child Welfare.
Gina Jarvis, and I'm for the Eastern Shoshone Tribe. I am the interim director. I also serve as a foster care coordinator and the juvenile service caseworker.
Sage Goff, the youth services and treatment courts coordinator. I will back up. I apologize. I am the youth services director as well as treatment courts of Fremont County director.
Good morning. I'm Hattie Calvert. I am the Assistant Director of Juvenile Justice Services of Fremont County, which incorporates youth services, and then I'll also talk about our day reporting center as educational and truancy stuff this morning.
Good morning, Chair and Co-Chair. I'm Maria Muslim, the interim Chief Judge for Wind River Tribal Court.
Here, so we'll hear from the Wyoming Department of Family Services first.
Thank you, Chairman. The Wyoming Department of Family Services operates juvenile justice programming for juveniles who are adjudicated delinquent or adjudicated chins. Our goal is always to provide services to children in their homes and to support families to maintain children in their homes whenever possible. We also oversee court-ordered placements when a court orders them into placement. We work in collaboration with community service providers and also multidisciplinary teams in our recommendations to courts.
We'll go ahead and go on down the line. Northern Arapaho Department of DFS, Shelley?
Is this on? Yes. We work with, like she said, I don't know what more I can really add other than what you said. I think that I'll just leave it at that for now.
I agree with Shelley and Jen as well. So we service the tribal members and the descendants of the Eastern Shoshone Tribe and collaborate well with the state and Northern Arapaho DFS.
As treatment courts of Fremont County, we work with all of these agencies, as well as some of the other local treatment facilities, mental health professionals, to provide services for our juveniles within Fremont County as a whole. We also partner and work hand in hand with the school districts to provide educational services as well.
So just some things on the youth services side of drugs and alcohol. So we are the county's diversion level supervision is what we provide. So any misdemeanor citation that is issued in the county comes through our office first. Then we bring those citations to the single point where we distribute them based off of previous history, all sorts of factors. And everybody has a voice at the table that attends those meetings and how to best disseminate those citations. So since January, we have had 52 drug and alcohol citations in Fremont County. 36 of those alcohol and 16 of those drug, mostly marijuana. We see marijuana 98% of the time. We recently did have a methamphetamine charge, but that is pretty rare for what we see at youth services. Drugs and alcohol make up currently 59% of our citations, and that's consistent. Since I've been at youth services, drugs and alcohol are always our biggest numbers of citations, alcohol always being number one. One thing we have recently done is we know our kids' blood alcohol contents are troubling at best. So recently we started pulling some of our averages, and in 2024, our average blood alcohol content on our citations was a 0.123. With our range being as low as a 0.012, and our highest BAC in 2024 was a 260. These are everybody who's under the age of 18. This is alarming. It should alarm everybody. In 2025, we did have an increase. Our average blood alcohol content was a 0.148, which is significantly increased from the year prior. And our highest blood alcohol content in 2025 that we saw was a 0.39 or 329, excuse me. That's troubling. That's extreme. The average blood alcohol content that we see in this county is extreme. In 2025, we had 110 alcohol citations, 46 drug citations, and 5 DUIs. All which, that's a lot. That's alarming. Access to drugs and alcohol is wide. We have anywhere from relatives buying, some people will find strangers and offer them money. We hear a lot of, our kids are honestly kind of honest with us. We do hear quite a bit of where they're getting it, and it is a lot of family. It is, here and there willing to buy it, have a stranger pay for it or pay the stranger in order to go into the liquor store. But, when you're drinking at these high of levels, you're not just getting a case of beer. This is, extreme drinking. Like I did mention, most of our citations that we do receive are for marijuana. I would say most of that does come out of dispensaries. We're surrounded by legal marijuana in the state of Wyoming. And, it's pretty easy for the kids to get access to that. Like I said, I would say 90% of it comes from Colorado. And the access is all over. We have seen a uptick in like a hallucinogenic use, mushrooms. The kids have started to be, pretty honest about that. It's circulating around parties. And there's some of that's coming from like the synthetic marijuana or like the Delta 8s through, you guys have heard all of the forms in which they take it out of. The same kind of thing goes for hallucinogenics. There's not like psilocybin in it necessarily, but there is all these other things that it's chemicals that their kids are putting into their bodies. So then I'll talk about our day reporting center. So our day reporting center is part of our juvenile justice. We have a classroom. We take about 12 students. We take no more than 12. And these kids are either coming about to go to placement, whether that be at the Wyoming Boys School, Wyoming Girls School, residential substance abuse centers. You know, there's a variety of places that they're either coming out of or potentially going to, that they refer students either as like a step down to come to us, receive educational services out of their home district. So if they're a Riverton High School student, they stay enrolled in Riverton High School working on their curriculum. They just report to our building. Some of those kids are also in jeopardy of being long-term suspended or potentially expelled. The district offers them a stipulated agreement to come to us, and they, rather than go to their home district, they report to our building and receive educational services. We see extreme truancy in that. We actually have been able to remedy some of that. I would attribute that to just a relationship with a positive adult. We have a direct services provider that's provided by the county, and then Fremont 25 provides a para that is in the building. So, you know, tight-knit group, they have, you know, they have somebody that cares about them, somebody who says good morning to them every day, you know, talks to them. It really does matter to them that somebody cares about them. So we do see positive return at day reporting in terms of attendance, but we see also massive gaps in education. 17-year-olds that have not been in school since the 6th grade. And, you know, catching them up to grade level at that point is almost impossible. So at that point, we're providing, you know, social services, trying to get them to, you know, look for jobs, kind of create life skills in order to be functioning members of our communities. Our kids likely stay here. You know, if you're from here, you're likely to stay here. So our kids need to be able to feel connected to our communities and that they're cared about here.
Thank you for that report, Ms. Calvert. I think it's, like I said, some of that is alarming, you know, and I'll go turn it over to
Thank you. I just want to build off of some of what Ms. Calvert had said. You know, these aren't new issues. The access to drugs and alcohol for our youth, they've been going for years and decades. And I feel like at this time, you know, active collaboration, we use the word collaboration a lot, but it takes active collaboration rather than just meetings or committee meetings saying, we're going to collaborate. We need to collaborate. We need to not work as silos. Going back to what Superintendent Bertram had said, you know, we're doing what we can in-house, but we need more buy-in from the school districts and from the system for it to work. And that's the truth. And I think right now on the reservation, we're taking some proactive steps collaboratively with the state of Wyoming DFS, with Northern Arapaho and Eastern Shoshone DFS and the courts, with our tribal leaders declaring a state of emergency for our youth and our juvenile back in, I believe it was March or April. And we've been having active meetings on how we're going to address the housing of our juveniles. And at this point, we're very reactive, and because that's where we are with our juveniles, but we also, at the time of being reactive, we need to start being proactive of how are we going to keep the alcohol and drugs out of the hands of our youth? Because it being reactive, we're just always going to be in this same situation of how do we get out of it? And it's not just a DFS issue or a courts issue, it's a community issue. It's our community members who are going to have to realize this is the path we're setting our youth up on. If we continue to provide them drug and alcohol, if we continue to have this availability, and most of the times, even their initial point into juvenile court and tribal court isn't drug and alcohol based. It's always waywards. Waywards are way higher than drug and alcohol. Runaways. There are runaways. So through our code, they're called waywards. And once they're in and on probation with ESDFS or NADFS is when they're testing positive. And then we're realizing, oh, well, we need substance abuse. And I want to say, you know, White Buffalo Recovery and Doyanatsu, they have great programs right now. They've taken the time to build those programs and be culturally sensitive and traditional and to get it in. And that's tribal court stance, is that We lose our youth unless we find out and get them back into the mindset of where they come from. They lost their roots. They lost where we come from as a people. So with White Buffalo and Doya Natsu, encouraging to get back to our culture while using evidence-based practices, that's how we're going to save our youth. We can come up and kick around ideas all the time of, DFS isn't doing this, or youth services isn't doing this, or the schools aren't doing enough. But until we start having active collaboration and quit working as silos, we're not going to get anywhere with our children. And that's where we need to be focusing on. Yes, we provide services to our adults, but until we get to our children and through the children into the home for the family and have family services of this is why alcohol and drugs are going to hurt us. It might have been okay for your family to drink at home, but it's not because of this, this, and this, but do it culturally sensitive. Because a lot of the programs right now, they come in and our people respond differently. Native people respond different to speaking at them instead of speaking with them and hearing them. So that goes to these aren't individual issues of drugs and alcohol and truancy, it's a combined issue. Why are they not going to school? Is there abuse and neglect in the home? Although the schools can handle that you need to come to school and you need to be at these meetings of you missed 5 days or you're 5 days late, they don't understand, well, grandma can't get up in the morning because she's sick, or there's one vehicle for 3 families that live there and maybe the school bus comes a mile away. There's social factors that are involved that the school cannot handle alone. We have to be active collaboration, and we have to put egos aside to what's best for our youth. And that's the only way we're going to get further. The court itself, we have restarted our Healing to Wellness court, which isn't a drug court. It's more of evidence-based practice, follows our cultural and tradition, integrates behavioral health, along with social services with Doya Natsu and White Buffalo are there. We have an MDT approach. We started it again last fall with our adults and have been moving into our youth getting referrals for it. That's a higher success rate than a clinical approach because it's incorporating for them to go to sweats, to go to ceremonies, to understand why drug and alcohol are not part of our cultural and traditions. I'm just here today to say, we can be at all these meetings and we can speak about who's not doing what or where it's falling through the cracks. But unless we come to the table and like they had said, there was a meeting where everybody wasn't of fear of what their ideas was, that's what we need. We need active collaboration of this is what's working here, so maybe it works here or it doesn't work here. And it's not just our reservation schools. We have our Native students that are in our off-reservation schools that get forgotten about a lot of the time, like Lander and Shoshone, DuBois, Wind River. We're forgetting a whole population, and they're still in all of the numbers that are being reported to the state for truancy, for drug and alcohol use. These are just community issues that we all need to be involved in because I can't solve it alone. I can't solve it on the bench, and I can't ask Gina and Shelley, can you put some more caseworkers on this area? This is a community issue, and unless we invest in our youth, where does that leave us, whether that's on the reservation or off the reservation? Because they will be taking over us. All of us are not going to be in these positions forever. We need to start helping our youth and empower them instead of telling them everything they're doing wrong or how truancy is affecting them when it might not be their faults. And some of the experiences I get is, they think I'm a bad kid because I'm missing 10 days. Well, maybe those 10 days was they were caring for a caregiver or they were caring for a younger sibling. There needs to be some room for some cultural appropriation in our truancy definitions when it comes to our Native children.
Thank you, Chief Judge. I think some of the stuff you touched on there. How is the capacity of tribal courts? Is your staffing adequate? Probably you still have needs there.
Yes, I think anybody can tell you everybody's understaffed. I don't think there's a program in the state that can tell you they're fully staffed and fully equipped and have every resource that we need. Of course, we talk to our leaders and they hear us that we need more children's court services. We actually had the conversation this morning with Gina and our tribal leaders. We need a court that's just focused on our children's issues instead of it being grouped together. And I think the misunderstanding of what tribal court is for a lot of people who think they have the understanding also needs to happen. We're one court, but we're 6 divisions within our court. We're an adult criminal court, a children's court, a civil court, a probate court, an appeal court. And we have limited number of staff. We need more staff. We need to be able to focus more. But then I can talk to county and they can tell you the same thing. I only have so many clerks and we're running in circles. I can talk to attorneys in Riverton and Lander of, I just don't have enough to do the filings. All we can do is approach each case as a person instead of a file, instead of a number and I think Gina and Shelley can speak on this, is that we've started making those directions, but of course we need more services. We need more supportive services with our juvenile probation. That's why we've been having these collaborative meetings of how are we going to do a juvenile crisis center. And when we have these meetings with our tribal leaders in our departments, it's not how is it going to benefit our reservation, it's how is it going to benefit our county? How is it going to benefit our state? We're not being exclusive to just our Native children. We're like, oh, we can have 5 beds on a crisis and we can open up 2 to the, outside to the county because we're centrally located. What services can we provide? Can we provide in-house for behavioral health? And how are we going to serve our non-Native children that also need these services? And I think that taking that approach with us of not excluding any demographic is what is getting the buy-in from all of these departments. And I think it needs to be reversed on the same side instead of this is a reservation issue. No, this is a Wyoming issue. This is a Fremont County issue.
Mr. Chairman?
Chairman Kate?
I'm not quite sure where to begin, but it is a Wyoming issue, but Fremont County is a definite outlier here. And Ms. Calvert, you talked about the average BAC that is encountered when you look at these cases. So we're not talking about occasional misuse of alcohol. We're talking about chronic use of alcohol, repeated binge drinking within the course of a week or less time. And we're talking about repeated use of THC within that same period by minors. And every time that happens, an adult provided the minor with the substance one way or another. If it came from Colorado, or from another state, was a legally purchased product there by an adult, came to Wyoming, an adult provided them with the alcohol several times a week. I mean, or more than once a day. It's like, is there any consequences for adults that facilitate this? And I'm trying to think when I read the paper, like read the police report, I never see anything about furnishing minors with alcohol. I can't think of it, and I might be wrong, but it doesn't strike me that I've seen that. And it's happening a lot. And the penalty in the law is a misdemeanor of $750. I don't know what it is for THC, but do we ever go down that avenue?
Yes. It is very infrequent that we see it. I actually saw one 2 weeks ago, which was the first that I had seen in a really long time. Yeah, there has to be penalty. I think that if you're asking my opinion on it, it needs to be an enhanced penalty system. The adult is allegedly the one with the developed brain, and yet you're willing to do that to a minor child. I mean, that deserves a punishment. And I think that deterrent, the citation is not there enough, in my opinion, to even create a conversation, right? Like if if Sage here gets popped for $750, that might make the rest of us at the table think. And it just has to happen more frequently. We do turn adults in to local law enforcement if we know, if the kids are honest with us, if they give us a name, we definitely turn it in. It's and I guess would be a hard path to follow to get them, you know, we might have to like even go back to like surveillance fit, you know, all of the things. But if, in my opinion, if the three of us get pulled over and I'm popped for a DUI, both of these adults are drinking and we have a 16-year-old in back that's drinking, all three of us are now responsible. We have to hold adults responsible for if they're drinking with juveniles, it has to happen.
So, Mr. Chairman, follow up? Follow up? I think you mentioned in your statistics, you talked about 59 cases or something like that.
Drug and alcohol citations since January 1st of this year, making up 59% of our sites.
Okay, thank you for that. 52 times that a citation has been issued to a juvenile. And in that 52 times, I heard you say there was one 2 weeks ago. Do you think, what's your guess of where an adult was implicated in those situations? You mentioned 1 2 weeks ago. Are there any others you can think of in that period?
No.
Okay. 52 times, one adult is charged. Every single one of those times, there's an adult involved in what happened, or multiple adults.
Right.
Oh, wow.
Representative Ottman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Did I hear you say, just because I'm not familiar, that there are marijuana dispensaries legal on the reservation? And
No, not at all. No. Our dispensary that, my understanding, and when I say most of it's coming out of Colorado, I say that due to pricing base of what I've heard from our juveniles. Like I said, they are pretty communicative with us. So they'll, you know, kind of tell you a little bit. And I guess when I say they're coming out of dispensaries, it's out of Colorado. Montana's more expensive is basically what we are understanding. And, you know, if anybody's been to Colorado, you drive and there's a plethora of them. You can drive downtown Fort Collins and you can pick out 7, 8 of them. So, you know, the access to it is, you know, pretty easy, but no, not on the reservation.
follow up? Okay. And just to ask, is there any way to determine what sites, like I know there's a couple places that are right on the border of the reservation and the county. Is there any idea of what places the alcohol is purchased more often maybe than others?
You
Or
know,
if it's just private parties or whatever?
the thing that we do not hear is that the kids are buying it themselves. So we don't hear that you can go into any local liquor store and they're not carding. It's kind of a free for all. That's not what we hear at all. There was previous issues with some other local businesses, mainly the vape shops, that we would hear that ID was not required. But we have not heard any of that about the liquor stores locally, no.
And just to add, they're getting it from adults who buy it legally. Yeah, and
Yeah, that's most of our understanding is that it is being provided by somebody who is 21 or older. Not so much so like fake IDs or that they're not carding at the liquor stores. We don't hear that. Our kids, they don't appear anywhere near 21. The kids that we have in our office, they are very visibly 16, 17. They could not pass for 21.
Mr. Chairman, and to go along with that, yes, I assumed that because I know our sheriff's department and things, they really put some sting operations out, and we're making sure that their departments and that the providers of alcohol in the county are very aware of how to card and do different things. But I just wanted to make sure that was still being followed through. And also with the vape shops, I know we have really made that more noticeable and loud. So apparently that's being it. So to go along with the judge, we need to talk with our community members and families somehow and deal with it that way. Okay, thank you.
Just one more.
Yes.
Ian, I might need some help thinking out loud here. But when it sounds to me like there is more than just Uncle Joe buys us liquor 5 times a week, or whatever, and also goes to Colorado 5 times a month, to buy marijuana product. It sounds to me like there's more organized effort to provide juveniles with liquor. I mean, it's just, I couldn't find, when I was a kid, I drank, okay? It wasn't that easy to convince an adult to buy for you, but it wasn't that hard either. But this is like to a new level, which tells me that it's like almost an organized business criminal connection. Would that be accurate? And in that case, the penalty of misdemeanor should not apply. It's a different animal. What do you think?
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that what we're seeing at DFS, at Northern Rapido DFS, is the parents are actually using with the kids. So it's not like there's an organized crime. It's just that everybody is using. So we get some kids into DFS and we try to address that treatment issue, but it's not getting done on the parent side. So they go right back into the home. If they can go back into the home, if the parent will do what they need to do to get them back. But that's what we're seeing.
Wow, thank you.
Yeah, I would agree, not necessarily as much as like a criminal enterprise. I would say more so that idea and just like way of thinking of like, well, we've got 21, 22, 23-year-olds still partying with 15, 16, 17, 18-year-olds, or, family members who uncle gave them their first drink. So there's like kind of this like idea of not necessarily connecting the dots of like why this is such an issue. If your uncle, aunt gave you your first drink, you have nieces and nephews, I would say it's more of that kind of an idea, way more than a criminal enterprise where they have 15 buyers in the county and everybody goes to these guys and they hit Smith's and IGA and free. And I would say it's way more of somebody that's in your family. Yes, absolutely normalized. There's not a lot of, when we talk to our kids, I'm like, do you understand that there's a big difference between a 15-year-old who's enrolled in high school and somebody who is freshly 22. There should be social differences. There's so many differences, and why are we all hanging out? And it's that connection of drugs and alcohol every single time. That's the bridge.
And that's what I hear more about, like what Shelley mentioned, adults drinking with kids or even parents, so it becomes, like you said, Hattie, normalized, and it's hard when you treat the juvenile, like you said, they go back into the same environment where that practice has been going on for quite some time.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to bring up one thing when I looked at the statute that you referenced. Statute 126101 actually says that a person who sells, furnishes, gives, or causes to be sold, furnished, or given away any alcoholic liquor or malt beverage to any person under the age of 21 who is not his legal ward, medical patient, or member of his own family is guilty of a misdemeanor. And so the statute itself doesn't just count distribution within a family.
And Mr. Chairman, I remember when we adjusted that statute and a lot of it was there was a discussion of families that like give their children a glass of wine at dinner. It's a family tradition, and it was like normalized like that, like this isn't really harmful. But what that statute does, I think, is allow you to give enough alcohol to your child to be a 1.43 BOA. I mean, I think it does say that.
Mr. Chairman, you're wondering if there is a limit to
Yeah,
what
there's no
that
limit.
provides. Mr. Chairman, I don't believe there is a limit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's actually not illegal. It's really what this comes down to.
The problem is that, yes, you are technically allowed to give your minor child a glass of wine, but that is harmful. Every bit of it is harmful to that child's development, to I mean, like, you're kind of creating a safe haven and practice of drinking that will negatively affect them as they move through their life. I mean, when you're drinking at 16, your brain is not developed. You're harming yourself. And then in turn, you're harming your children. And, you know, it's giving alcohol to minors. It's harmful in all of it. Whether you're hosting parties that, you know, well, they're in my shop and they're okay because I know where they are, it's harmful.
Yes, and I know that we are, say we're a dry reservation, but we have alcohol in our casinos now. What does the Shoshone and Arapahoe Law and Order Code address these type of issues, Chief Judge?
Thank you. So we don't have that clause. I was unaware that Wyoming statute had that clause until just now. We have two charges that an individual can be charged under. The first one is furnishing alcohol to a minor, which has the penalty of 30 days flat and a fine of $500. And then we have our other acts prohibited against children, a subsection where it's basically contributing to the delinquency of that minor through drugs and alcohol, through truancy, through taking them to fight, or any of these kind of other juvenile delinquent acts. And that could be up to 180 days flat. So we have two codes that could, but as the same thing as Hattie says, I think we've seen it more often than she has reported on the reservation in the past. So we're in June. I want to say we've had probably maybe 10 charges of furnishing, and they do charge everyone in the car. So even if it's just the DUI driver, they'll charge all adults in the car for the same charge of furnishing to that minor child. It's a little bit stiffer, but we don't see it as often as we should, knowing that on the DFS side, when we come in, they are removals from drug and alcohol use with the parents and the minor child. So we might be getting it civilly, but we're not seeing that follow-up charge criminally through our court. So we do have the leeway. I think it's just going to take some education to our law enforcement and some backing up from our prosecution and county attorneys and judges to enforce this. But we have to keep in mind that we're also dealing with a generation that had a lot of teen pregnancies. So we have 30-year-old parents that not necessarily maybe didn't raise their children, that their parents raised their children. So now it's more of a friend relationship of I'm going to party with you and provide you alcohol, then the parental mindset isn't kicking in of I'm contributing to you what could possibly be detrimental to you. And if we have a 30-year-old who's been drinking since they were 15, the frontal lobe didn't even develop until they were 25. And there's already been that impact on them. So we need to do more. We have parenting classes for how do you parent your baby? How do you parent your toddler? But we don't have age appropriate parenting classes for teenagers. And so maybe that's where some of our focus goes, is the parenting for teenagers and adolescents, because I'd like to say only 15, 16, 17-year-olds are drinking, but we have 11-year-olds drinking. And when you do pre-sentence investigations or predispositional reports, you're asking them your first time of alcohol use, and they're saying 8 or 9. And you're saying, who are you drinking with? And they're saying mom or dad or grandma, auntie. It's all, like, I would say 75% of it is family that is providing this to them. So we need the education portion coming in, not to just our youth, but to our parents, our young parents and our older parents, and even the grandparents who are raising them. And maybe that's a component that we plug in through DFS, is that, or even youth services, your child's on probation, but now in order to help them, we're going to educate you on the dangers of drug and alcohol use.
To follow up on my last question, thank you, Chief Judge. I was wondering what the numbers are regarding, say, fentanyl and methamphetamines.
We at youth services do not see a lot of it. I would say that DFS would be able to report better on that. Like I said, since January, we have had one methamphetamine citation. I would say that it's not happening. But like Miss Muslim said, when you have a 15-year-old with a citation for alcohol and they say they've been using since 9, drinking since 9, that took a long time for them to enter the system, for law enforcement to, make contact and the citation actually be generated. So I would say that although we're not necessarily seeing the citations, that does not mean that it's not happening. And I would also put into that, a lot of our citations in the county come from the schools. And by that, I mean, like, they've been caught using marijuana or drinking alcohol while at school. And I don't think that the kids who are in heavy methamphetamine use and heavy fentanyl use are not attending school at that point. So therefore their chances of coming into contact with law enforcement and having those substances on them are going to be far less. It's definitely happening. There's just not a lot of citations necessarily to back that up at this point. That's what I would say about that. Mr. Chairman.
Oh,
Gina?
I would just like to add, like she said, it's mostly THC and alcohol, but then I think we have to think, why are these children drinking with an adult? Are they a perpetrator? Is that why they keep going to get alcohol from them? I think we had a juvenile where I felt we, did her behaviors and she went through court, but we failed her because there was a reason. She was being abused by an uncle or someone who bought alcohol for her. So I think that's where we also fail when we punish our juveniles for drinking. It's like, why are they drinking?
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to kind of bounce back to your fentanyl and methamphetamine use, and let you know that it's coming. It's already here, but I can name 6 kids right now that have been born to meth and fentanyl both. And it just kind of makes me wonder the parents that are also using. I don't believe that there's any citation at all.
Yeah, the reason I asked about that, because you see, like in County 10 and some of the police logs, there's always somebody getting picked up for meth or being charged with meth use or possession of meth. So I think that, like you said, maybe it's more hidden, Hattie, in terms of usage, but I think we all know that alcohol is a generational issue with youth and rite of passage that some don't come out of, Still takes a lot of people in our tribal communities, alcohol abuse. So any questions or comments from anybody on the committee? Representative Altman, please.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just question, so maybe I understand a little bit better. If there was more involvement by, whether, like training, whether it would come from law enforcement or whoever it would come from, which governmental bodies? I mean, does this have to only be Fremont County attorneys and judges and law enforcement, or only the tribes, or both, or how would that work? Because I know it's so involved in both, but go ahead.
Chairman, I think that it's a statewide need for training for all of us on all ends, DFS, on what do we look for, like Gina had said, substance abuse to use to self-medicate for trauma, and youth services for law enforcement on, this is a priority for me to cite or to arrest on contributing, or I've seen you 3 times with the juvenile, what's going on, I'm gonna now arrest you. And then the judges of this is a serious issue, because if we can nip this, then maybe some of our bigger issues aren't coming. So I think it's a state issue that we all need training on, and not just one department needs it. We need it across the board on, maybe SAMHSA or someone has a training already that other states are utilizing. Because like everybody has said here, alcohol is such the norm. Like, I don't think there's someone in this room that can say, hey, I didn't experiment when I was a teenager and my parents were okay with it. So we need to get out of that norm thinking and more of education to understand why it's detrimental to our future of our kids. But I think that it's not just a tribal that needs a training. Of course we do. We're welcome to any trainings that can better equip us tool-wise. But I think we have so much overlapping of our kids. That's why we have Fremont Youth Services and DFS. They could be monitoring the same child for 2 different cases. So there has to be that collaboration. And we open up our juvenile court docket to youth services because they might have them in the county side, but we're just now seeing them for the first time in tribal side. And we're thinking, oh, this is just a one-time offense. This isn't an issue. But then Hattie and her staff can come and say, no, I've had them for the last year. Now they're just being caught on the reservation, or vice versa. Might be the first time in district court when we've seen them for the past 6 months or year with alcohol, and now they've rise to the level of drugs or battery. So we have so much overlapping, even in with we have a big Native population in Gillette and Casper. So kids might be jumping from Fremont County to the reservation to Natrona County to Gillette or even Cheyenne because they're just bigger Native populations. So we need to be on the same page of how are we going to approach this and who are we going to report this to if it happens in Gillette? Are we going to notify Shelly and Gina just so that they have someone on their radar so we're not letting people fall through the cracks?
Thank you, Senator Case. Representative Ottoman, I can kind of bounce back off of that as well. Because I think all of us in our training, we all have certain specialties. We all have kind of our own roles. So I think training as a whole is monumental. I also believe that we all have to recognize prevention is the first step. So how are we getting this information to our communities? How are we getting this information to our parents? Once we get them that information and that's still being maybe not taken as seriously or not heard, okay, what do we do next? Ms. Calvert and I have worked really hard here over the last few months in even reorganizing our diversion because we're recognizing those gaps of what we're missing, what, we can't always parent the parents. As much as we want to, we can't. So recognizing the gaps in how do we help the children? How do we make them have them see and understand their choices have consequences, but it doesn't have to be their story. And I think that's kind of the key piece that we all are trying to make is these children are our future. And our future is very scary right now with the choices that are being made, with the path that is acceptable for these youth. And it's not a question of, is it the chief judge's responsibility to cite them? Is it DFS's responsibility, our responsibility, the schools? It's all of ours. We all have a hand in this and we all have a part to play. And so I think really trying to navigate those shortcomings. I say that intentionally because as treatment courts of Fremont County, all of the juveniles who come to our program have to be court ordered. Unfortunately, by the time they reach a court order through district court, they're not at the level of care that we need them to be beneficial. We are having to send them to outside agencies away from their families. So then that takes away the opportunity for us to work with the family. And then unfortunately placing them back in that environment where we've helped the juvenile, but we've not helped the family. So there are a lot of shortcomings within the system as a whole. And unfortunately, all of us can only do so much, and we get that, but so much of it also starts at a state level. We need to look at legislation. We need to look at laws and statutes in making sure that we are not unintentionally harming our children more than we're helping them.
And this is kind of just
Chairman Case?
bit insane. It's actually bigger than even this, because I think back to the events at St. Stephen's where, administrators and other adults, not family, wasn't a family party. It was a cult. It seemed okay for professionals in that situation to be at events where alcohol was provided to minors that were going to that school. And I don't mean to, wow.
Is there any other comments or questions from the committee?
Maybe
Yeah.
lunch.
I'm pleased to hear the aspect of wraparound services. Nothing new, nothing new on a reservation. I mean, it was talked about in the 80s or 90s, late 90s, but I think if you're very committed to work together and make our community safer, our youth better equipped to handle if it's addiction or whatever, it makes a big difference, even if you reach a couple of those young people and a couple of those families. It's always makes a big difference. But you ladies probably have the hardest job in this room, maybe in the state, in terms of the issues you see and the concerns and the barriers you face, whether that's a court system. I'm sure a lot of this goes into the truancy issue also, and I'm like co-chairman Case. I might have drank once when I was young. No, I'm kidding. But
I think I remember that time.
but but I don't know. It's almost a generational thing, and just the area we live in terms of Wyoming, it's almost a rite of passage. So it's okay to drink, and that's another barrier that you ladies face in your programs. But I think if you have a plan to work together collaboratively, you're going to make a difference. And anything we could do, please holler at us, either one of us here, and we'll see how we could support any way we can. Yes, Shelley?
I just wanted to say that we was present while the school districts were up here. And I wanted to bounce off of something that Chief Judge mentioned when she first opened up was, and you touched on it as well, as collaboration. I want the schools to hear us loudly that we are here to collaborate. Just let us know what we need to do and we're going to be there. I don't know who might have not been working collaboratively, but we all work really well together. And we want to share that. We want to tree it out and do the best that we can for our relatives.
Thank you. We'll let you all go here. We're going to break for lunch in a bit. We're going to get public comment, and you will be part of that public comment here, Scotty, once they leave up here. Thank you so much, you ladies.
And just as you're leaving, I think the school districts have all left. I'm not sure. But loud and clear, I hope they listen to this.
Mr. Chairman, to Scotty Ratliff, and I'll try to be brief, but I'm just wondering if there's any ordinance against a family court and if anyone's aware of any reservation that has ever used family court as a solution.
Anybody have an answer for that?
In regards to family court, specifically within Fremont County, I do not believe that there is a model for that. However, as taking over the new director of treatment courts, my hope is that I can gear our juvenile treatment court as more as a family court dynamic. It's going to be a process. It's going to take some time, but that is my goal, is that it is more of a family court, as you're not just treating or helping the juvenile, but you're treating and helping the family as a whole.
Thank you. Is there any more public comment on our issue this morning or this afternoon? We will go ahead and break for lunch. We'll come back out 1:30. The food court is closed, so we'll have to go someplace else to eat. So we'll see you at 1:30.